Diary of Helen Kimball Whitney. In the year of our Lord, 1893. Sunday, New Year's Day, a quiet one as usual. Jen went to the class and worked hard at dinner, getting afterwards Walt here as usual. Hent and her Helen here near night. Lil not so well this morn, but better afternoon. Jen read me some sermons at evening, was to have gone to evening meeting with her, but we were too late. Jen sung and played the organ. Mon. January 2nd. Lil so much better. She did up the dishes this morning and is sewing carpet rags and singing. Orson's Emily and Dimps were sent over to tell me to come there and go with them to the funeral of Jane Ferguson at 1 o'clock tomorrow. The first that I'd known of her being sick. Tuesday 3. Attended the funeral of Jane Ferguson. LeGrand Young made a few remarks. Orson preached the funeral sermon by request. I met numbers of old friends whom I'd not seen for years. Spent a while at Orson's before and after the services. Zine came to see me on the car. This has been a mild day like spring. The girls did the washing this forenoon. Wednesday 4. Sister Rachel Simmons called to invite me to her sister Nettie's tomorrow, her birthday dinner at 12 o'clock. Received a letter from Flawed at Chicago yesterday, and we replied today. I've sewed most of the day. Sister Jane James and her brother, Colored, called to see me. This has been another pleasant day overhead. Thursday 5. Attended fast meeting, also Jen and the children. Each donated 6 bits for temple. From there I went to Simmons, had a pleasant time, walked home after 12 o'clock. Joe Frank my escort, another lovely day passed. Friday 6. Little Florence real sick, cried in the night, has a high fever, both sides of her neck swelled, and painful when moved. We've another beautiful day. At night we put wet cloth and flannel round baby's neck. Jen felt fearful of its being the mumps. I took cold going out yesterday. Saturday 7, a hard day for Jen to get the work done, but Florence is better and played round all the afternoon. I built a fire in my grate and kept the room warm all night where Jen sleeps. But they all slept good with no disturbance. Sunday 8. I felt worse, had a chill, took quinine, and was better towards evening. Jen attended the class and evening meeting. Lil with her and Lee. I took care of Florence and wrote to Flawed in New York. Had a call from Bro Charlie. Mon 9. My cold affecting my head and throat, took 2 doses of quinine, finished letter to Flawed, and did a little sewing. Girls did washing. A heavy fog upon us. Got a letter this afternoon from Flawed. Jen went to her house on an errand for her to her hired girl. Tuesday 10. Dreadful fog, my head, neck and shoulders aching. Orson came to say that he and Zine were coming to see us Thursday Eve and bring Miss Babcock, who dessers, to meet me. Wednesday 11. Feel better from taking Grafenberry pills, but cough worse. Went over a pile of papers, doing up a few to send away. Lil returned to Helen's, taking Lee. Helen came up afterward. I was honored with a ticket to matinee today, but thought it best to stay indoors. Thursday 12. Phoebe, Kimball, and Tess came to see us. Orson brought Miss Babcock at 8 o'clock and Zine was to come in the car. Emily was sick though. George and Helen came at the same hour. I'd given them up as they and all were to be here at 7 sharp. Had a very pleasant time and broke up at 11 o'clock. Friday 13. Feel more poorly from not sleeping enough and eating a nut cake at supper and an orange before retiring. My stomach is out of order, and that must be the cause. Wrote to Flawed in the afternoon. Sat 14, slept better, but coughed terribly. Built a fire in parlor thinking I'd have less draft on me. Had a visit from Sister Zena Young in the forenoon and from Sister Jane Simmons in the afternoon. Jen did the cleaning and went to drugstore and got me some rye whiskey, glycerin, and rock candy, equal proportions, which I put together for my cough. Sunday 15. Lonely to me, not able to read. My head bad. Helen came with Lil at Eve. Jen went to evening meeting as well as to Sunday school. She joined Bud's choir. I dreamed of meeting and kissing my dear mother. Mon 16. Quite a deep snow's fallen. The washing done early. I've done nothing but write a postal to Sister Crowther. My head and eyes will not bear it. 1 ton of coal came. Tuesday 17. Warm day, felt better, sewed a pound or more of carpet rags. Jen went to tithing store and got numbers of things, among them a dozen napkins. We began to hem them. Sister Crowther came to see us, brought some new Arctics in the place of mine that were lent her last spring. Lil is here sewing carpet rags. Wednesday 18. Went with Lil as far as D. News Corner 3, leaving her there in charge of Grace, who offered to see her on the 21 Ward car. Went to X off. Got 2 of the 15 of NOV. To send away Emmeline was surprised to see me went to T.O. store and traded some from there to Mary Whitney's, completely tired out remained till night. Tui took me to D. News where we waited half an hour for car. Spring day, Thursday 19. Coldest night for some time laid cold dreamed of William Kimball bringing me a fine black walnut bedstead and a little stove and other articles that had been sent me from London. I couldn't imagine why they were sent to me. I had just bought me a lovely open front stove far prettier than that, but I had concluded to put the handsome bedstead in my parlor. When I awoke laid awake and coughed 2 or 3 times in the night, it was 10 when I arose and breakfast was just ready. Jen had sick headache last night, made her late to rise. Another lovely day, Friday 20. Men hear from James to put a new water jacket in the range. I pasted scraps into my scrapbook towards evening. Set. 21. Worked very little, mailed Christmas Herald and Exponent to Mr. Beard, the same with news to cousin Libby Walling. Hen and Flawed were to be in Chicago today. On the way home my head and eyes bad. Sunday 22. Jen went to Sunday school. Quince Kimball came to see us. George came home with Lil Orson's Emily and Dimps called, and Soul's children all evening as he went south to preach. My eyes bad from reading. Mon 23. Washing done by 12. The new ringer helped them fine weather. Jen went to drugstore for my sleeping and cough medicine. Clerk told her, to her questioning him as to the effect of chloral hydrate and bromide of sodium upon me, that it was the most harmless of any of the narcotics that were taken. She got some chickens and pork and pickles at tea store and a market basket. The sewer main between D. News and the Lion-House burst today, lifting the ground and making a noise like a big gun. That and 2nd South streets are flooded. For I've done nothing today, my eyes so weak. Tuesday 24. Fixed up a headless dole for Lee while he was gone to Helen's with Lil tired out and obliged to lay down as I do nearly every day, my eyes worse for working. Grew, Mary Jane and her Roscoe gave us a call and I got up. Helen came home with Lee near night. Grace expects to go home to Minnesota 1st of March. Wednesday 25. Very poorly when I arose, laid cold some parts of the night, bitter cold weather. Had a call from our neighborly sister Robbins, whose right arm was broken some time back. I dressed Lee's dole, which is a delight to him. Thursday 26. Head felt badly and eyes weak. We had a visit from Lou Barton and children and her sister Minnie Musser 5. My niece, Marion Sprague, came and spent a while. The south wind most disagreeable, a regular thaw. Friday 27. Mild day instead of stormy as we expected. I took cold yesterday, have sore throat, took quinine and used dry sulfur inside, was wakeful much of the night, the room too warm from having a fire, and I took less sleeping medicine. Fearing my headache and weak eyes proceeded from that, I bandaged head and eyes in wet cloth and flannel on retiring, and don't know to which the credit is due for my head and eyes feeling some better. The wind is blowing again this evening. Sat 28. Flawed surprised us being here by noon and staying till bedtime. Hen coming up to supper. They arrived at 6, being delayed 3 hours. Flawed enjoyed the visits and sightseeings while gone. Grace, learning that Walt was sick at home, went to see him. I mailed a parcel to Sister Crowther. Sunday 29. My cold worse cough incessantly. Walt here, but very pale from sickness. Helen came bringing her Horace and Lily. Jen attended the class and evening meeting. Orson, not feeling well, remained home at eve. Jen enjoyed Hullingbro. David Mackenzie speak. Snowed some in the night. Mon 30. I've coughed more and felt sicker till after dinner, felt better, but my cough is tight and my lung sore. Lil returned to hence afternoon. Jen went to tithing store and market and returned loaded. Snowed this morning, windy this evening. Tuesday 31. Cough and lungs relieved, this being my granddaughter Emily's 8th birthday. Jen took her a pretty book and I composed a verse for a little album which I sent her by general. She took the children, but finding all gone but the 3 youngest children soon returned. Wednesday, February 1st, wrote a letter to Sister Pomeroy in Mesa Ari. Jen having received one from her this morning, she answered it this evening. Grace had a message from Walt that he was at home sick with quinsy. She went to him, spending the day. His throat quite bad last night, was bitter cold. Thursday 2. Fast day, snowing, arose late. Jen and Lee went to meeting taking donations for the temple. Lee paid for himself a nickel and one for Florence. Grace gone to stop the day with Walt. I'm more poorly today, had to lay down twice. My head and eyes are still feeling badly. Friday 3. Did very little. Finished an apron commenced yesterday AM feeling stronger, but my cough and head is worse. Jen cleaned the east rooms. Grace swept dining room and her own and then went to Walt. His throat's better. Orson called this evening. He goes to Provo tomorrow to preach. Flawed was here near night. Jen had gone to Bro. Savills to send a message from me to W.J. Smith. When I sent for her, she was assisting Sister Saville to quilt a bed quilt. My cough has increased this afternoon. Saturday 4 feel better, arose late, so did Grace, and we took breakfast late. She went down and brought Walt home. He looks quite the worse for his cold, received sleeping medicine from Bro Smith via politeness of Bro Saville. Jen made a cake and sent part of it to Sol intended for his birthday, but which was a day or two late. He was 46 on the 2nd. Sunday 5. Throat sore in the night is so nearly every night. The south wind yesterday blew up. A heavy snowstorm grew furious near night. Jen faced the snow to attend the class. Sol's Helen and Heber were here yesterday, and today Hent came with Lil in the worst of the storm. Walt here afternoon, but is feeling worse and went home early. Jen went to evening meeting. Few there, she said. She read aloud a sermon by Joseph F. Smith. Mon 6. Feel stronger though subject still to colds. Took quinine today, my head being bad. And my cough. Jen went with Lil to see her on the second car to Hent's. Then to tea. Store brought me a rich dress pattern of flannel, double width. And Jenny Kimball she met on the car on the way to see us. Souls Farney told us that Faye Whitney had broken his arm sliding downhill. Tuesday 7. Cold night. Made a skirt into 2 aprons for Jen. Flawed sent to see how I was, saying she was kept in by a cold. Sent me her portrait taken in New York this winter. My throat's still a little sore, but head better. AM taking Garfield tea. So is Jen and Lil. Wed 8. Felt worse for yesterday's work. Head quite bad. Taken cold and it sewed carpet rags towards night. Had frame fixed to the glasses used to view pictures through. Paid 25 CDS towards night. It began to rain and blowed up a furious storm. A paper came from Mr. Beard of Knightstown, Indiana. Thursday 9. Head better, but I've a poor appetite of late and cough wears upon me. Cloudy today. Finished a carpet ball and sewed another. Friday 10. Coughed all day but sewed 2 carpet balls. Head aching. Orson and Zine called on us about 9 o'clock. Weather quite mild. Saturday 11. Lungs relieved by oil and turpentine. Outwardly sewed 1 carpet ball and mended stockings for self and Lil, not feeling as strong as yesterday. Sunday 12. Stormed most of the day spent at home as usual. Jen attended Sunday school and evening meeting in spite of storm. Mon 13. Arose with headache, but left me after breakfast. Sewed a ball of carpet rags and tore some, and also Grace sewed a ball. Lil and Jen sewed some after the washing was done. The day pleasant. Tuesday 14. Pleasant, and I felt better. Lil and I worked at carpet rags. Jen got a check from Ed for $50, went and paid tithing out of it, and $15 to Wiscombe brought candy and alcohol to me. And Valentine's for the children. Wednesday 15. We went to Hens. I not feeling as well as usual. Laid down twice the day. Beautiful Mrs. Musser called after we'd left. Grace entertained her and afterwards went downtown. We found little Helen sick with sore throat and a strained back. Thursday 16. Feel better. Finished a shirt commenced yesterday for little Florence and made her another and covered my stool with new carpet. Friday 17. Lovely day spent at home working, fixing, and mending a basque for Lily. Jen sewed carpet rags what time she had. Saturday 18. Felt better than usual. Finished Lil's basque and pressed it. Wrote a postal to Mrs. Crowther. Dreamed of Orson. He was just a boy living at home. He'd prepared the most of our east lawn and sowed that to grass, and came home with a few cantaloupes and other melons which were to be planted in the lower part of the lawn. It all seemed natural. A son of Uncle Joseph Young was with him, I thought, and I was introduced to him. Sunday 19. Slept late, snowing all day. Jen and Lee went to Sunday school, and she to evening meeting. My eyes so weak cannot read and feel lonesome. Flawed and Hen came in the evening, and also Lily. This is the last Sunday that Walt and Grace will be here as she leaves us on Tuesday. Mon 20. Washing done and Lil done over not feeling well. Jen went to town to trade. Bought a wrapper pattern for me of black German calico. Margaret Clausen called to invite me to visit at her house tomorrow. I gave Grace one of my books, Why We Practice Plural Marriage, wrote my autograph in it by her request. Tuesday 21. Went to Margaret Clausen's on cars. Lil accompanied me on the way to hence spent a pleasant afternoon with old acquaintances and came back at dusk in Clausen's buggy. I invited them to my house 2 weeks from tomorrow. Grace left today, tomorrow being Washington's birthday. Wednesday 22. Cut me out a chemise and partly made it tired out at dark and had to lay down. Jen read the news to me and read also from the juvenile instructor before prayers. We appreciate these privileges, having been so long deprived of them only as we'd snatch the chance occasionally for prayer. Jen took the children and Mrs. Young's little girl to the concert at Tabernacle, I not daring to go, it having snowed last night, and today they had a delightful treat. Thursday 23. I finished my chemise. Jen went to drugstore to get me cough drops, called at Mary Whitney's sister Horn was in to see us. She's quite poorly in body, infirm from old age. Friday 24. Overdid myself sewing and tearing carpet rags. Head and eyes bad. Helen and little Helen came up near night. Sister Rachel Grant brought Sister Winters, who was seeking the record of those who died on the journey here. I gave her that of my babe who died on the Sweet Water when 5 days old. The teachers, Rob, Patrick and Bro Watts, visited us this evening. Among other things Rob told us was this, that a Gentile in New York had given $5,000 towards finishing our temple. He sent it by Spencer Clausen, but requested that his name should not be known. Saturday 25. Snowing again. Flood came up this afternoon. I sewed carpet rags part of the day. Jen's done all the work, and we are grateful to be to ourselves once more. That we've the privilege of attending morning as well as evening prayers without fear of disturbance. Sunday 26. Sunday is decided to be the correct name, so I adapt it. Jen went to her class and to evening meeting. Snowing heavily. Helen and Brad came with Lil at eve. Jen read some to me in the afternoon. Mon 27. Washing done by noon. I let down a skirt for general snowing still. Tuesday 28. Girls did some house cleaning. I worked altering the basque of the skirt I altered yesterday. Jen went to tea, off, and coop. Wednesday, March 1st, came in like a lamb. We and the children went to Flood's, called into the coop to pick out some teacups. Met Joseph F. Smith at the door, who knew me, but I didn't recognize him at first. It has been many years since we've met before. I with baby were brought home from Flood's in buggy streets, frightfully muddy. Forgot to mention Patriarch W.M.J. Smith's calling on me yesterday. He was a man I wanted to see to get some more sleeping medicine, which he said he'd see to within the present week. Thursday 2nd. We with children attended fast meeting, enjoyed it much. Joseph E. Taylor was there and spoke in a very interesting manner. Numbers of persons rebaptized were confirmed. The day is lovely. I worked at Jen's dress afternoon. Received a good letter from Sister Pomeroy at Mesa, written to Jen and me. Friday 3D. Jen ironed, then cleaned the outside of the windows to parlor, my room and bathroom, etc., etc. Orson called with Zine and their little Margaret. He remained longer than they, as Zine had an engagement. She said she came to thank me for the token I sent on her birthday. Orson told me some interesting things. Our chat was short and sweet. I've worked most of the day, nearly finishing my job. Saturday 4th. Jen cleaned windows inside, went to store and bought her a dress to Miss Woods to be fitted, and took my dress pattern with my basque to cut it out by. Went to Flood's and took dinner and to the bank and draw $40 of my interest money. Finished housework after returning home. I sewed most of the day. My health's improving. Sunday 5th. Conference did away with Sunday school. Jen went to Tabernacle afternoon, enjoyed the meeting, brothers Nicholson and Joseph F. Smith the speakers. Before morning prayers she read considerable in Book of Mormon, and I read part of the day and this evening aloud from Bible the prophet Jeremiah, and Jen read some of the time to Lil and me. Mon 6th. Girls done washing early and went downtown. Lil to Helen's and Jen to stores. I've done some sewing. Tuesday 7th. Had 2 deathly spells on retiring and through latter part of last night and all day. Had to give up work, my hands cramping, so Helen came and with her Genevieve. She made an English walnut cake and helped Jen other ways. Jen went to coop and got some china cups and saucers and a few other dishes. Ed is writing for her to come to him, as he has been offered the charge of a boarding house. He wants her to come and take charge of it, but she refuses to leave her mother again. Wednesday 8th. Wakeful, caused by those deathly spells which made me sick, but felt better afternoon, as they grew lighter, and I had but two after my visitors came, and was cheered by their company. Helen came early, Genevieve with her. She made cream pies, and Flawed also came and helped, bringing a fruit cake and had ice cream ordered, which came in time. There were present the two sisters Simmons, two Clausens, Phoebe Kimball and Mary Whitney. Kate Young sent me word that she was sick. Vi Kimball didn't come for some cause. The table was ready to seat us 4:15. Helen was complimented on her hot biscuits, and Jen's cold chicken, roasted, was taken for turkey. Everything, and we'd a variety with coffee, was superb, and the table was set charmingly. Hen came for Flawed at eve, and ate supper. Thursday 9th. Snowing a sick day for me, although those deathly spells have abated, they affect my whole body. Sat in parlor and went over a pile of papers to pick out the parts to send away. Tired, but it helps to kill time and gloomy feelings. Friday 10th. Was so prostrated, had hard work to keep off the bed. Deathly sensations would come over me, but passed off all but one without coming to a focus. Sister Horn came in, though poorly in body. She brought a little jar of cherries in return for cake and cream pie that Jen took her yesterday. We've been blessed with sunshine this afternoon, and I prize it. Our Laura called to see us afternoon. The death of Sister Sarah Felt 10 is in the evening news, died of dropsy. Jen read from the Book of Mormon before prayers. I began taking oxygenated bitters when those deathly spells took me, as I think my not having any before for 3 months is due to this medicine. Nothing that I've ever taken previous to this having done me any good. Saturday 11th. Feel very different today, had no more bad spells. Jen feels sad and can't hide it. A letter from Ed, in answer to her saying she would not leave me though kind, has broken her heart. I feel her sorrow deeply. She read in the evening news an excellent sermon of President F. D. Richards when we had prayers. Sun, 12th. Snowing and blowing furiously. Jen went to Sunday school in car. I hung a bed quilt on the clothes horse to keep off the wind from the north door and window. The cars have a tough time getting round the corner. Wind went down about 2 o'clock and the sun is out in its glory. March 1893. Lee's hurt his right foot some way and can't walk on it. It's swollen and inflamed. I washed and combed the children. A peaceful spirit had reigned though stormy without. Jen went to evening meeting and Lil came that far with Helen and stopped. Helen came on and spent a while with me. Hen and Flawed came and spent the evening. I've had a touch of the gravel and taking tea of watermelon seed. It began yesterday but was very light. This has been an unusually cheery day to me. Mon 13th, Jen's 33rd natal day. L and M called to give her a token. L a lovely apron, the lace of her handiwork. M a pretty little cup and saucer. I cut out 2 chimes for Jen and commenced making them. Sister Nielsen, a Scotch sister, called on an errand. The forenoon was stormy, but it cleared up in time to dry the clothes. Tuesday 14th. Lil returned to Helen's. Jen went to dressmakers. Orson called, as he was out for a walk, was tired out writing. I finished one Jimmy and began another. Flawed was also here. Afternoon brought Jen a fancy cup and saucer, a birthday remembrance. Wednesday 15th. Arose early. For me was to have gone to Sister Howard's funeral in Assembly Hall, but stormy weather prevented. Did some sewing. Wrote the following in Sister Reed's album. Point 12. There is no gain except by loss, there is no life except by death, nor glory but by bearing shame, nor justice but by taking blame. Jen went to dressmakers in the snowstorm and it blew furiously on her return. She read in Book of Alma before morning prayer and at evening. We appreciate this liberty, etc. Thursday 16th. Cut out the 3D chime for Jen and sewed a little. She went to dressmakers afternoon and did some errands. Eliza grew and 2 of her daughters called on us. We and children attended the exhibition Confusion at the 18th Ward Schoolhouse. Enjoyed it much. Had to wait in the cold for streetcar was the unpleasant part. At the close I shook hands with Apostle Brigham. Flawed and Hen were waiting for Buggy at the door where we met. Flawed quite surprised to see me there, it being a new thing for me to go out at night. Friday 17th. Sunshine and clouds. Jen received a $50 draft from Ed. I went to R.S. conference in 14th Ward this afternoon, had a full house and a good time. I received a warm greeting from sisters. One said, I prayed that you might come to this meeting. Said I, the prayers of the righteous availeth much. President Horn announced me as the first to speak and mentioned my being kept home by sickness and feebleness of body, and see. I I rode from there to the foot of the hill near Heber Young's residence with Bro and Sister Horn. There I waited for the car. I walked from Main Street to the meeting. There being no car, the wind was quite cold. I invited Sister Horn with several others to come to my house next Wednesday afternoon. There are several more to be invited. Saturday 18th. I finished the 3D chimney for Jen, feeling the gravel worse, took parsley tea which helped me. Jen went and got her draft cashed, and got George Bourne to take $8.50 to pay James as he offered to do it. Sunday 19th, Jen went to Sunday school and to evening meeting, read to me from Mormon book and from my father's history and a sermon of Joseph F. Smith. Helen came near night. She'd left Lil at chapel on the way. Flawed and Hen were there. They had a splendid meeting and crowded house. Jen says they've just come home. I received a letter from Brother Soul. Mon 20th. Answered Soul's letter and went to dressmakers with Jen afternoon. The girls got the washing out by noon. We met Flawed on Main Street while waiting for the car. Mud, mud, mud. Tuesday 21st. Snowed the forenoon. Jen went to Patrick's store for numbers of things and downtown for chickens for my party tomorrow. I wrote a postal to Sister Crowther. Cut out and worked on a chimney for Jen. Received an explanatory letter from S and replied to it this evening. Wednesday 22nd. Lightning, hail and snow this morning and snowed half the day, but my guests all came but Sarah Kimball, Zine Young and Lulu Richards. Sisters Horn, Taylor, Bathsheba Smith, Dr. Barney, Freeze and her mother, Staines, Powell, Howe, Dinwoody, Stevenson, M. Wells Woodsey. The three last mentioned and Sister Taylor were late. I desired a meeting and put it into President Horn's hands. All expressed themselves and pronounced blessings upon me and Sister Stevens, and another sister spoke tender words to Lily, knowing of her sorrows and afflictions. Numbers noticed her pale, thin face. After this we partook of the refreshments that were bounteous and tastily placed upon the table by my other three girls. Flawed provided some cakes, lettuce, radishes, and ice cream. Hent and Jen did the cooking and Flawed did most of waiting on table. All expressed their pleasure at being invited and the enjoyable time we had together. Flawed was anxious about Hen, he being real sick with gravel. Thursday 23. Sunshine and clouds. Arose late, not having slept good for a few nights. Jen gone to take birthday gifts to L and M, and to Coop to change some rubbers for me. A lady reporter for the Herald called to learn of a party that someone told her was had by Mrs. White at number 285 yesterday. I knew no Mrs. White. I told her to her question, asked her if it could be Whitney. She inquired if I knew Mrs. Whitney. I says, that is my name. After she'd put it down, wanted to know if BP Whitney was related to me, and desiring to learn the names of the ladies, I gave them, referring her to the editor of Woman's Exponent for what more she wished to write up. I was laying down when she came, and little Florence let her in and told her that her mama had gone downtown. The Herald notices of society ladies' parties and sociables, etc., have been detestable to me, and I never expected anything of this kind. She said, apologetically, that they had to do this, being employed to hunt up these things, so my feelings were somewhat softened towards reporters. Friday 24th, snowing in the morning. My Helen is 31 years old today. Jen went and took her our gifts, little cups and saucers. Went from there to Miss Wood's for our dresses. Nothing but my skirt was done. She brought it. She also went to the bank and drew $5. I felt sick from headache and palpitation this afternoon. Sister Robbins called in and Bro Watts called as teacher of this district. Saturday 25. We all attended fast meeting at the chapel. Enjoyed it very much. House crowded. Being late, had to sit in the gallery. Received mine, Lil's and Jen's recommend to the temple. Met numbers of old friends there. Wrote to Sister Pomeroy in Mesa the afternoon. Sunday 26th, Jen went to Sunday class and to evening meeting. Lil was there and came home with her. I took cold standing waiting for the car yesterday. 1 foot cramped in the night. And my cough increased, but I'm thankful to be no worse. George Bourne called on us afternoon. My eyes are very sore from writing yesterday. Mon 27th, washing machine broke and the washing was out at 11:30, half an hour earlier than usual. Lil walked back to Helen's afternoon. Sister Crowther came up, looked very feeble. Grace Thurston came to bid us goodbye. As she starts home tomorrow, Jen got her a lunch. She'd walked so much and Jen noticed how pale she looked. Sister Watt's teacher called this forenoon. I went to Sol's, and he showed me around his rooms in the basement, ingeniously arranged for convenience and comfort. Tuesday 28th. Cut out and partly made Florence a gown of pink calico and attended Relief Society meeting at 2 p.m. in the Lionhouse. From there went to Mary Kimball's and spent a while, then to Mary Whitney's, LOL, and George Winder's, where there had been baptized that afternoon. I came home after dark. The day's been lovely. Wednesday 29th. Another bright day, worked all day. Jen went and brought our dresses from Miss Wood's, paid $5.50 for mine and $6 for hers. She went to tithing store and got me 5 yards of red flannel. Thursday 30. We attended fast meeting. The time was all taken up confirming persons who'd been baptized, many of them rebaptized, and there were 2 babes blessed. Many recommends to the temple were handed out. Zine told me that Phyllis Ferguson and some of her family had been rebaptized. How this news rejoiced my heart. I went so early the chapel gate was locked, so I went to Zine's. Little Florence was with me. Jen and Lee walked and got there in time. Orson attended morning prayer while I was there. The day lovely and the roads dry. Sewed afternoon. Friday 31st. Finished the second dress for little Florence. Received the Cincinnati Commercial Gazette of Sunday, March 19th. And the Press of March 21st, published in New York from Mr. W.M.H. Beard of Spiceland, Indiana. Sister Peyton or Johnson brought me a book, The Testimony of Nancy Nowell, presented me by the author. She has been sealed to my father's soul, acting as proxy in the Logan Temple. I've never known her, but she wishes to present her book to any of father's wives who'd like it, or her friends, as she's wealthy and can afford it. This has been a lovely day. Saturday, April 1st. The old sign has failed, no storm as yet. March came in mild and stormed ever since, till a week past it has been pleasant and mild. There was a cool wind yesterday. Sister Cornilla Cobb's little daughter died yesterday, cause heart failure. I went down to Sol's this morn, heard good news that Press Woodruff had received a revelation from the Lord telling him to let every person into this temple who had been in the church and were not cut off, which shows the great mercy of our Heavenly Father. He said our brothers, who've been off the track, would receive recommends to go there. He told me a dream of Sister McLaughlin's about Orson. He had charge of some very rough and unruly sheep, but the scene changed. Orson was standing upon the side of the hill on a green grassy plat, surrounded by a flock of sheep as white and beautiful as they could be. This sister said the dream gave her peculiar feelings. Jen cleaned house and went to tithing store and got eatables, etc., and to drug store for me. She is feeling poorly. Sunday 2nd. Warm day. Helen, Lily, and all the children came to see us, and George followed them, but I went to tabernacle meeting. On my return, found Florence here. She's been working with Hen in the temple, making and hanging drapery. Lil went to evening meeting. The tabernacle was crowded, even the gallery was full. Priscilla Staines paid my fare home. We met on our way to meeting. Mon 3D. Washing done early and Jen gone downtown. Beautiful weather, one can hardly stay indoors. Jen brought numbers of eatables from tea store. I began a white linen apron for Flawed on her 26th birthday tomorrow. Jen got her a souvenir with our temple in the bottom of it. My niece, Clara Kimball Christensen, and her husband and 2 children arrived from Canosh this evening. Her mother, grandmother, and sister Lois went to my brother Charlie's. Tuesday 4th, conference began today. Ed Talbot arrived from Butte this morning, brought some money, which came good as we'd only 25 CTS cash in the house. Lil was loath to leave the company, but she'd promised Hent to return there today so she could go to Flawed's, this being Flawed's birthday. Wednesday 5th. We had a call from Will Kimball, my nephew, from Mesa, Arizona, and Amanda Kimball's Will from the north. Jen, Ed, and children went, after dinner, to Hent's, found Flawed there. The gravel troubling me. Jen got some parsley for me. Thursday 6th. Felt sick on rising but got better. I had a deathly spell when I first awoke. Ed went and got me some more oxygenated bitters. The wind was furious all night and grew worse till near noon. It took off the chimney over my grate and blew soot over everything, particularly Jen's cot that stood by the fireplace. It was black, as well as her bed, which furnished work for her. At last came a little rain and snow, grateful for it. The dedication of the temple began this morning. The presidency issued several hundred invitations to outsiders yesterday to visit the temple, and all were accepted. They were surprised and delighted at the richness and beauty displayed in the workmanship, and see. The Tribune of today is full of its praise, saying, "The temple is indeed a gem." The presidency and many others at its dedication were melted to tears. Orson's little girls were over here afternoon, and a number of father's folks called a flock of white gulls were seen upon the temple during the windstorm, an interesting coincidence and one of deep interest to Saintly. I had those deathly spells every few minutes through the day, and suffered till night from gravel, when I took tea made of watermelon seeds instead of parsley and was helped. Friday 7th. Had a fire in parlor, feeling very poorly, but had no more pain from gravel. Sister Leitner came yesterday and stopped with me till noon today. Hent and children came with Lil and spent afternoon. Flawed also came and spent a while. Trim Jen's hat for her to go to theater tonight. Clara went to the temple this morning with her husband Press. Woodruff related a vision or revelation that he'd had since yesterday's meeting. He saw a mighty throng in heaven from Adam down to those who'd belonged to this church and had died, among them President Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, Heber C. Kimball, Willard Richards, John Taylor, etc. When those in this temple shouted, they shouted the same, only louder and with greater power and feeling than those who congregated here. The Savior stood in the center of them. Saturday 8th. Had fewer of those deathly spells yesterday and today, but have felt very much reduced and so sick had to lay down in the forenoon. Noise affected me, have a poor appetite. Ed took Lee to barber's yesterday and got him a new suit of clothes. He took him Florence and Jen and had them taken with himself in a group, and children single and together. He got the samples today. They are splendid. They went afternoon to see Polly. Lil stopped with us to go with Jen tomorrow to the temple dedication. Orson, learning that I was not invited to the temple yesterday, was quite surprised and sent me word that I could go with him and Zine a week from tomorrow. I couldn't have gone yesterday and enjoyed it and was glad that I was overlooked, as I'm sure that it was not intended. I've not desired to be among the first there, but to wait a few days, so I told my girls, and think that Providence has overruled the matter. Clara and husband and children left this morning, take car this eve for home. I felt much better in the afternoon and went with Ed to concert in Tabernacle. Enjoyed it very much, so did he. Mon 10th. Snowed quite deep Saturday night. I'm again troubled with gravel, and deathly spells returned yesterday, increasing through the afternoon till I felt sick indeed. Lil and Jen went to meeting in the temple this afternoon. George and Brad called to bid Ed goodbye, but he'd gone to call on Dolph Whitney. Orson came and spent quite a while with me. Ed came just as he left. I neglected to eat yesterday, not having thought of it till late, and was distressed in the night and made pretty sick. The girls returned from temple about 5 and got dinner. Helen and her Helen came and spent a while. Lil was quite elated by what she saw and heard in the temple, so she didn't feel her fast. I finished a postal today that I commenced Saturday to Sister Crowther, though this has been another sick day, those death-like spells not having let up yet. Florence sent for me this morning to visit there with Aunt Harriet Kimball, who'd promised to visit her today. I sent back a note telling her that I was too poorly. Ed left for Woodville, Montana at 10 this morning. It's rained, and this afternoon a windy snowstorm is on us. Received a short letter today from Lucy W. Kimball saying she'd been sick but was present at the grand dedication services in the temple on the 6th and wondered what had kept me away. She'd attended the funeral services of old Sister Farr and Sister Howard's and had been sick since that for 10 days and not able to attend conference. Wants me to come and see her if I am able to. Tuesday 11th. Storm ceased and sun trying to shine out of the clouds. Girls washing. I'm still afflicted with deathly spells and felt very sick from that and gravel this morning. Steeped melon seed and soon got relief from the latter, but the other came with no cessation, making me worse. Afternoon. Phoebe and Cad Kimball came to see me, and Flawed also called and spent a while. Wednesday 12th. Some snow last night trying to clear up, had deathly spells through the night, and the most of today the worst that I've been for a long time, obliged to go to bed for and afternoon. Thursday 13th. Had several strokes through the night, better in the morning, but they commenced near noon, harder than yesterday's. Took to bed and they left me. Jen went to Patrick's, and to town she met Zine and told her how poorly I was, and that 8 o'clock would be too early in the morning for me to go to the temple Rob. Patrick bringing my ticket last evening, Zine told her she'd tell Orson. She told Jen that Angus M. Cannon felt quite bad over my not being invited the first day, said it was an oversight, but I could go any time that I desired. Jen bought me a record to keep my diary, and some indelible ink, pen, etc. for marking our clothes. Friday 14. A pleasant day, and I'm a little better, but loathe food more than any day previous. Received a special invitation from the presidency to go to the temple. Jen went downtown and brought home some strawberries for me, but I could not eat them. Sister Mary and Hubbard came this evening. She and Bro. Hubbard had been to the temple dedication. Saturday, May 13, 1893.22. 1 month ago I was prostrated upon my bed, and it will be 1 week tomorrow since I put on a dress. The 15th of April near morning I was taken very ill, not having eaten much for a week, was filled up with gas, causing great suffering, so that it was well on to noon or later before I got relief so I could take nourishment. Sister Hubbard had been with me 2 nights, left for Willard City that day. Harriet S. Kimball, feeling interested in my behalf, came to ask me if I would consent to see Dr. Dog, who had saved the life of Christine Kimball, being previously given up to die of dropsy by 2 other doctors. She thought he could help me, and it should cost me nothing, she said, if I'd consent to his calling. I was loath to, as I thought of running up a DR bill, but was persuaded. She went and engaged him to call at 3 o'clock that afternoon. He requested me to give a description of my Alesh, etc., particularly of the deathly spasms which had afflicted me so many years, and had been on me then for over a week. When I had told him the cause of them and the many years I'd suffered from them, he said he could not cure them. They were of too old standing, caused by inability of some parts of my heart to work, and the blood rushing sometimes and at others very little. That mine was a shattered constitution caused by great suffering, shocks, and strains upon my nervous system. He said those spasms were not dangerous, but that the state of my kidneys were and likely to cause dropsy if not attended to. I engaged him and have been thankful, as his medicine is working wonders, though the stormy weather has had an unfavorable effect upon me, to which he lays my slow recovery. Said all his patients were affected by it. On his first visit, after I had engaged him, he found me suffering from lumbago added to that of gravel and the gas that nothing seemed to relieve me of. He ordered a porous plaster that nearly reached around me, which assisted in relieving me. I'd been drinking tea made of watermelon seed, etc., for gravel, but it only brought momentary relief, and not till I began to eat or got an appetite was I relieved of gas, which was the worst at night. I was administered to by Orson and Bro. Donaldson before I had the doctor, and afterwards by Orson, and twice he's been and spent a while with me. He administered to me last Thursday. My name was taken to be prayed for in the temple, and Sol told me a week ago that he had me prayed for the Friday previous in the Manti temple, the day that I remembered to have received perfect relief from bodily pain. He went there to have his new wife sealed to him, who had not received her endowment till then. He brought her in to see me the first day that I dressed. Numbers came to see me during my sickness, some who were not admitted, as it hurt me to talk or hear much. Lal Clark, learning of my poor appetite from Jen, brought me some canned fruit, and also Sister Waring, who called with her daughters, when learning of my sickness, came up this same day to bring some of her fruit. Had brought me some canned cherries, and some red salmon, which were almost the first things that I relished. My bodily suffering and debility brought a gloom upon me equal to the buoyancy that I felt for so long a time previous to the temple being dedicated, which I anticipated enjoying, but was taken sick early that morning, the 6th of April, growing worse until after the dedication was over. It was not my disappointment that affected my spirits, as I thought to have recovered in time to go, but the effects of disease, and the peculiar depression that it has brought upon me. Then my body has been prostrated to such weakness that it will require time and some exertion on my part. I was so much better the 2nd week after the doctor attended me that 3 days I was able to comb my hair while sitting up, and the 3D day read some in the Exponent. But next morning I must have taken cold, as I took a chill and was in a burning fever the afternoon. Had a call that afternoon from Sisters Cobb and Alder. The next day I was much reduced in strength and tried to use more caution after that. I was afflicted with night sweats, and they'd come on every afternoon until since I've been able to dress and sit up more. The weather is very pleasant. Tuesday 16th. Sunday last I was visited in the forenoon by Flawed, and afternoon Helen, George and children came and stayed till night. Jen attended the Bible class and Lil afternoon and evening meetings that night. I commenced having spasms, which I'd been threatened with for a day or two. They grew worse yesterday till afternoon they ceased, but leaving my body prostrated. And I've suffered much from palpitation of the heart, having previously been afflicted with it. My appetite has failed for a few days past from some cause had relished my food for a time past. Flodi brought me a case of strawberries last week which I dead with little Florence. She was real sick and has had a dreadful cough, and also Lee, but they're better. Lil went to Hens today. Jen went to see the DR but found him out she is suffering from piles and gravel. Ed wrote her to consult some DR right away. Wednesday 17th, feeling stronger than yesterday though feeble and trembling, took breakfast with Jen and children to save her steps, made my bed and see. Sol called in and I invited him to take dinner with my family, who expect to meet here today. Hen and Flawed expecting to start Saturday for Europe, where he goes on a mission, and she to school. I received this information while sick. Flawed had her beautiful bookcase presented her by Bro and Sister Dinwiddie brought up here, and some other things for safekeeping during their absence. I forgot to mention Sister Saville, who called here a week or more ago, and the next day came with her carriage and took me, Jen and Florence a ride. The next day I was considerably improved. The weather's been very warm for a week past and lowlands threatened with floods. Thursday 18th. Rained, hailed and snowed in the forenoon so that a fire was comfortable. Lil returned to Helen's as Helen was to go to dentist's to have her teeth filled. She has had some filled and others pulled. My family and Sol took dinner here yesterday. Helen had all her children, and Sol's Helen and Heber joined them and spent a happy time. Flawed sang a solo at the MA of the 18th Ward last eve. Jen and Lee attended it. She's been poorly enough today and worked in misery. Mary Whitney was to have been here to dinner yesterday, but didn't get here till late. Marion Sprague called and spent a few minutes. I'm feeling stronger today than any day previous. Tuesday night I dreamed of floating in deep water like the sea, near the shore, and there were a few ladies, though I didn't notice them. At first at my right, a little farther from the shore, was a beautiful white dove, though as large as 4 or more common ones. I was admiring it, and the next that I remember the water was as white as the dove, the surface being all a white foam. I thought of my inability to swim and that if I were to try, I'd only go to the bottom, so concluded to keep quiet. My body, except my head and part of my shoulders, was underwater. Soon there seemed to be other women around me. I thought I should find assistance, but I'd no further remembrance when I awoke. Our neighbor, Mrs. Adams, was in to see me this evening. Friday 19th, Orson and my girls sat for their photos at Johnson's, which I'd requested of them Wednesday. They had proposed it and wanted me to sit with them, but I refused, looking so thin and dull-eyed as I do would mar the group. Dr. Dog called this forenoon, thought he could give me something to prevent so great a rush of blood to my heart, the cause of those death-like spasms, that they might be lessened if not cured. Jen came home quite overdone. She brought some strawberries. She received a draft for $50 yesterday from Ed and today paid 15 of it to Wiscombe's. Flawed sent a bundle of things to the girls, among them a good winter dress that will do nicely for Lil. She came and spent a while with us this afternoon. Tomorrow will be our parting. Saturday 20th, cloudy and threatening. Our rag carpet came from the weavers, costing us not quite $6 for weaving. Jen went to Dr. Dog to consult him about herself and to get my medicine. He told her that she was entirely run down and prescribed some strengthening things to tone her up. Flawed brought her home in a carriage. Jen, having called on her, and Flawed was coming up to take me with her to bid Helen goodbye, and to Orson's, where she received a beautiful blessing under his hands, he requesting us first to bow with him in prayer. From there we went down to Dinwiddie's for Hen to go with her to bid some of the family goodbye, but they had so little time left he couldn't go. From there I was brought home, where we had our last embrace, and Lily, Jen and Florence. There were numbers of their young friends going to the depot to see them off. On the D&RG, at 7:15 p.m. I told Orson my dream of being in the ocean bathing and the white dove, etc. He said the dove signified the Holy Ghost, and the white foam on the water its holy influence, or something to that effect. They thought it a beautiful dream. Sunday 21st. I'm still improving. Read considerable for me. Jen, feeling better. Lil went to afternoon and evening meetings. George came to see us near night. We've had rain and hail and sunshine. Jen read from St. Matthew's before morning prayers and from my father's history in the afternoon. Mon 22nd. Have a slight cold and sore throat. Lovely day. Lil gone to hence. Jen about the same. I took a belt off of Lil's green skirt and sewed it on again. My first work in this line since the beginning of April. After dinner went to call on Sol's wife. Returned tired out. Hent came to see us on her way to town. Tuesday 23d. Jen, seriously sick, distressed with gas the same as I was, growing worse all day till obliged to go to bed before dark. Lil came home in time to bake bread and wash dishes. I filled part of a sheet to Flawed left by Jen. Waited on her what I could and washed Florence and got her to bed. Was quite tired out. Sister Watt's teacher called on us in the forenoon. Jen gave her 30 CTS in silver and the same in TO, order for the poor. Wind whistling around the house made it somewhat gloomy. Jen got a letter from Ed. Wednesday 24th. I laid awake part of the night worrying over Jen. She had a better night than I'd anticipated, but is suffering still, and her body is sore from pain. Young Mr. Watts is cleaning my yard and cuting the grass. I got Sol's Farney to go to Dr. Dogs for Jen, who gave Farn his car fare. The doctor came. His decision was that she'd ulcerations of the womb or ovaries, that being the cause of her other troubles, etc. Changed her medicine and said an examination would be necessary. And if he should perform it, he'd want me or some woman to be present and see her condition as well as himself. Sol's Farney went to drugstore for the medicine. Thursday 25th. Rainy half the day. Jen rested real good, feels better, but looks awful bad. Lily obliged to do part of the washing. Farney offered to do what was necessary, got him to bring me some kindling, everything being wet outdoor. Sol came to see if I wanted anything downtown. I sent by him to tea store to order and pay for 200 PDS of flour, and to get a pint of port wine from drugstore and some cough drops. There came a note from Hent for Lil to come and stay with her children while she went to have teeth filled. She hadn't heard of Jen's being worse. I wrote for her to send the children here and she did so by Helen, who'd brought the note. Returning, she called for the children and stayed a while. Visited by Bros Watts and Patrick, the teachers, this evening. My health improving daily. Friday 26th. Made pancakes and baked them for our breakfast. Lil had the table set and some lovely steak cooked when I got up. Jen ate with a relish, but the steak, though tender, laid heavy on her stomach. I bought some strawberries for 10 cents a box at the door from Southern Utah. Lily ironed besides doing all the work. I washed Florence's head and curled her hair, etc. Tired me, but I'm gaining every day. George came up to see how we were this evening. Saturday 27th. Pleasant and nights frosty. I've brushed up the 2 east rooms, dusted furniture to parlor, etc., and not laid down till after dinner. I doubt if I could done it previous to my last sickness. Jen about the same. She wrote a short letter to Flawed. I received one from her just arrived at Chicago, she said. Lil did cleaning of kitchen and dining room. She's in better spirits today, has been gloomy this afternoon. She and Lee went to tithing store and meat market. We paid 25 CTS to a peddler for 2 boxes of strawberries, not as good as those we got for 10 CTS a box. Sunday 28th. Beautiful day. Lily went to Tabernacle. In the afternoon, George, Hent and children came. Florence 3 years old today. Hent had made her a pretty gown and put it on her. George got a package of candy for the occasion. He called last eve to see how Jen was getting on. She's felt rather low-spirited, not being able to work or amuse herself reading very much. Mon 29th. Bro and Sister Watts cleaned my parlor. Jen overdid herself and felt the effects at eve. I was overdone somewhat, moving things, etc. Jen received a letter from Ed, greatly encouraged about the mines. Tuesday 30th. Decoration day. Jen's room was clean today. Received a good letter from Flawed dated Sat. 27. Chicago. She and Hen had quit tea and coffee, and he is smoking. That was a hard thing to do while traveling, she said. But they prayed oftener and more earnestly too, and had felt Such a good spirit all through the journey, so far God grant we may always feel so. They had had a pleasant time taking in the principal sights at the fair, and were to finish that afternoon, for, she says, tomorrow is the Sabbath and I have not forgotten the conditions on which I am to receive my blessing given through Orson. You don't know how I cling to it, and as many times as I've been east I never felt so safe before. This is joyful news. I forgot to mention the windstorm of yesterday. The top piece and 2 bricks were blown from off my chimney, the same that was blown off the 6th of April last. Lil has been with Lee to a birthday party given Mary Decker today. They had a grand time. Deck is a splendid hand for getting up such things. Wednesday 31st. Laid awake till after 2, arose late, mended a dress for myself and C. Jen at work sewing. I felt rather gloomy over our prospects. No one in the house is able to go out and attend to getting things to eat, and C. nor to do all that we need done, cutting kindling, packing coal, and C. I got bro. What's to do at last. Eve had to warm me by the kitchen fire to keep from taking cold. Had another wind and dust storm this evening, no rain. Thursday, June 1st. Lily went to fast meeting at the chapel, took 25 CTS for her donation and the same for me. This is the birthday of my mother and brother Heber, and President Young, and his daughter Violet. Last night we had a rain and hailstorm quite heavy while it lasted. Sister Crowther came to see how I was and 2 or 3 others called, my Helen among the rest. Jen got a good letter from Grace Thurston. Paid 20 CTS a box for strawberries, many were spoiled. Friday 2nd. Lily washed. Jen not so well in the morning but better afternoon, so she got dinner. I watered part of the lawn as the grass was dying, and basted 6 pairs of lace curtains together. My body is weak and trembling in the morning, and when I try to work around on my feet. Saturday 3D. I flooded the lower side of my lawn, etc. Sent a check by Sol on the state bank and drawed $50. His Farney went for me to DR's and to the drugstore for medicine. Flawed and hen sale from New York today with other missionaries. I've done more than any day previous and bathed the children to save Jen doing it. She's hurt herself and growing worse, but wouldn't let me send for the doctor. I found her crying. She feels discouraged. Son. 4th. Arose late, not resting good till morn. Had worked too hard, had a light spasm on retiring, got up and took medicine that doctor had prescribed for that. I've worked in pain and had to lounge more than usual. Jen so much worse. She sent for the DR, who explained to her that her condition was critical, and that she must go to bed and lay there 2 or 3 days, that she was fast losing her lifeblood as it was flowing from her heart, etc., etc., and that was the only thing that would stop it. So she undressed and went to bed and got Farney to go for carbolic acid. His going yesterday and today cost us 30 CTS. All the other times added has cost quite a sum for us. And Jen promised to pay him something when she gets another check from Ed for his services. My Orson called in but couldn't stay, it being time for evening meeting. Said he'd come again and bless Jen, whom he was surprised to find so sick. He preached at the tabernacle, Lil tells me, and she greatly enjoyed it. Helen came to see us at evening, Mon 5th. In the forenoon, I went to Dinwoody's to pick paper for my sitting room. Miss Babcock came onto the car, was surprised and pleased to meet me, and assisted me to the store, which I was thankful for, feeling so weak. Met Walt Dinwoody, who helped pick out my paper, and walked with me to west corner of that block and across to the north side of the street to purchase strawberries. They were 25 CTS a box, too much I thought, but took 2 boxes as Jen wanted some, but Walt put on the 3rd box and paid for them when I questioned his doing, so he said he got them for Jen. At the next place I inquired their price for strawberries, and they said 20 CTS. I'd taken my long walk needlessly as there were plenty on Main Street. Walt saw me on the car, and I rested after I got home, after which I watered my lawn, taking a chair to sit down. Jen is not doing as well as she ought to, as worried over Lee's going off over the hill with Heber. Mary Whitney and Elle were to see us this afternoon, and Mary took a $5 order on Tithing Store to get us things to eat to send us occasionally. George Bourne came up this eve to see Jen and fix my hose that leaked near the nozzle. Tuesday 6th. My south room was cleaned by Sister Watts and Son. I'm weary from the things I do, which there is no help for, among them watering of my lawn and various duties. Near eve, I got rested and bathed both children to go to bed. Jen is some better. Lil had a good dinner for us and the hired help. She has to work more than she's able to. Wednesday 7th. Men from Dinwiddie's papered the south room. Young Watts cutting the grass around the edge of lawn, etc. A slow worker. I watered grass and fruit trees, mended a cut in my carpet done by the crink that put it down last year, and etc. Jen doing pretty well. Hent and children came to see us and took Lee home with them. Lil has ironed and done all the housework, has to do more than she's able and gets disheartened occasionally. LOL. Winder called. I sent a message by her to Deck to see if he'd come and put down and clean my carpet, etc., etc. Thursday 8th. Sister W. and son working here today. Jen wanted to dress, but I thought it unwise. Received a letter from Flawed dated N.Y. the 3D they were to sail that evening. Answered it. Jen had written on the 2nd and mailed them to Liverpool. I'm watering my lawn besides doing various things and overseeing the cleaning. Friday 9th. Lily did quite a washing today. Jen dressed this morning. Deck came afternoon and put down and cleaned my carpet at Eve. Miss Babcock came to say goodbye. Orson and Zine met her here. She stops with them tonight. Leaved for her home in the morning. George brought Lee home, fixed my hose, found the stoppage of water owing to Kimball's and see inside. Saturday 10. Deck working, hanging pictures and putting the things in place. Jen quite smart. I'm in pain all over from working and obliged to lay down occasionally. Faye, Whitney and Race were to see us. Faye brought pie plant and lettuce. We bought strawberries at our door for dinner. Son 11th. Sister Dinwiddie called this forenoon. I'm tired out and glad to rest from my labor during the afternoon. George called at Eve. Lily went to afternoon and evening meetings, enjoyed them very much. Jen getting stronger every day. Windy weather yesterday and today. Mon 12th. Felt more comfortable sitting sewing the new rag carpet than working on my feet, but overdid myself. Sister Lulu G. Richards called, said she would take me to Sister Thompson's on the 15th if I would go. Deck worked half a day, paid him 75 CTS. Mary Whitney sent a steak and garden sauce by him. Tuesday 13th. Sick most of the day from yesterday's work, felt better towards night. Read from my diary to Jen, which she enjoyed, much of it about her sickness, which came so near ending her life the February after her pa died, and many forgotten scenes of interest to us. Mary Whitney sent us some green garden products by Faye got for us at Tithing Store on our order. Lily went to Helen's this afternoon. We have no coal to cook with, nor to do the ironing left last week for the same cause. Had strawberries for dinner bought at our door. Cold day. Bought kindling of a man 3 sacks for $1. Wednesday 14th. Still prostrated and obliged to lay down till afternoon. I worked some on the carpet. Mary Whitney came up to help me staying the afternoon. It was a treat to have her with us an afternoon. She brought meat and butter. Jen went and called on Soul's wife, and on Mrs. Evans, rather too much for her though, added to the other things done about the house. Thursday 15th. Had rather a wakeful night, being without sleeping medicine. I felt very poorly the forenoon. Jen went to the DR's. Helen accompanied her. Lil going to stay with her children. Found the DR out of town and their trip in vain. At 3 o'clock. Sister Lulu Richards called in her carriage for me to go to Sister Mercy Thompson's, according to agreement, to fetch me on Sister T's 86th birthday. I enjoyed the ride and the visit. Lulu went to temple for Sister T's daughter, who's been an invalid a long time, and greatly blessed and restored by working in temple. We took refreshments, after which I received administration, anointing and by a brother White, who'd called to see Sister Thompson. She proposed it, and I gladly accepted the blessings pronounced upon my head. 3 of Joseph F. Smith's wives and little ones called, and 1 or 2 sisters. Just at dusk past my old homestead, almost felt homesick. I dreamed the night previous of being there, intending to move back into the West Wing, and renting this, thought I still owned it. But I'd not exchange places now, though this is too far away. Friday 16th. Weather hot again. I feel very much better, though I was so nervous half the night that I couldn't sleep. Got up and took paregoric and slept well. On rising, found Jen and Lil had done some of the ironing, not quite 8. Jen sat on a high chair to iron while Lil washed the dishes. Zine sent a note by Emily and Maggie informing me of a surprise on Sister How at 4 tomorrow, which I'm invited to. It's her 70th birthday, and the party is to be given by the Young Ladies Society of the 17th Ward, which Sister How is president of, and has done a great amount of good to them and others. Saturday 17th. cleaned my room by hard efforts. Lily washed the things that were not given to the laundry, and Jen assisted her in that, and the other work I rested and bathed before dinner and went to sister house where she was surprised at 4 o'clock by a circle of her friends on returning from meeting in their ward the 17th. I was a little late having to wait some minutes for the second car, but we had a lovely time. Most of the sisters arose and eulogized sister how and the good work she'd accomplished among the children and young ladies, etc., etc. Refreshments were passed round, and after enjoying a feast, spiritual and temporal, sister Howe's son brought me home and sister Ellerbeck in his carriage. This was an unlooked-for blessing. I had such a dread of taking the cars, or watching for them at night while waiting for car on my way there. Andrew Kimball came along, and stopped till it came along and assisted me onto it. The first time we'd met for a long time. Son, 18th. We've summer upon us for certain. Jen dressed and took children to see sister read this forenoon. Lily went to tabernacle and evening meeting. Orson preached this afternoon. Sister Glade called at eve, and George Bourne, he and family, had spent the day at Farmington. I slept but little during the night. Mon 19th, weather cooler towards morning. Agreeable change. Jen received a letter from Ed, and check for $50. Laundry man took a few clothes. Watered lawn, was tired out doing a little. Soul called in and sat a while. Tuesday 20th. The dining room and kitchen were cleaned and whitewashed. Ethel Horn was employed and Bro Millard. Afternoon with my help he put down the new rag carpet. Jen went to bank to get her check cashed, and afternoon worked at cleaning furniture, etc. Wednesday 21st. Cleaned my room and watered lawn after resting. Was so sore and lame, could hardly get up my yesterday's work with today's. Lil and Jen worked over half the day cleaning and putting house to rights, and afternoon Elle went to hence to stop while she went to the lake. And Jen went to drug store for me and to see Polly. Ed has proposed for her and children to spend the summer with him. I commenced a letter to Flawed Monday and wrote some more today. Jen brought some lovely cherries to me and children. We're enjoying strawberries at 10 cents a box. Thursday 22nd. Did no work. Went with Jen to see Helen and spent the afternoon. Lil walked home this morning and we had her take car with Lee and returned to tell them we were coming. The wind and dust had been awful all day while Helen's and Jen's children were playing, and little Helen was trying to put Florence into a cart where Genevieve had been assisted. Brad and Lee, who were holding the tongues, let go of them, throwing Genevieve out and Helen and Florence down, the wool running over Helen's leg and scraping her shin in 3 or 4 places, and hurting Genevieve's foot. The screams of the children were dreadful, causing quite a furor. The mothers and all hands flying to their rescue. Turpentine was administered to their wounds, and they were soon sipping around. Elle was there fixing a dress for Hent. Lil stayed all night. Hent bought strawberries, and George brought some home, so she gave us some which we ate at supper on our return. I've been so lame that it's been with difficulty that I've stepped up or down steps, and was so tired had to lay down some time. I was overcome by sleep and more tired than I was yesterday. Friday 23d. Did a little sewing and watered the lawn, though better than yesterday. I tired out very soon, so I had to lounge as usual. Orson with little Emily came to see us this evening. He was in deep water. Had absconded the day before to Kaysville with Masters Clausen and Cummins, and Z's heart is wrung with grief. Such sad news cast a gloom over us. The boys that he's gone with have a bad reputation and may have to be sent to the School of Correction. Saturday 24th. A man cut the lawn this afternoon and charged $1.25. Jen and Lil ironed. The clothes never came from the laundry till today. Jen cleaned the 2 east rooms yesterday. Lil the kitchen and north porch, etc. today. I made her a fine garment, quite a task, as poorly as I now am. Jen has put up numbers of jars of fruit, strawberries, cherries, and pie plant. Son, 25th. Lil attended afternoon and evening meetings. Jen had a call from Mr. Whitney from the mine in Montana where Ed is employed by him as overseer. She took Florence and called at Orson's this afternoon. Race was at home again. Mon 26th. Had a wakeful night, though I took Fetty pills. Jen went to get bleached cloth, etc. at Coop, and to drugstore for Castile soap, toothbrush for each of us, and paregoric. And got some strawberries. She received a letter from Ed, and I an interesting one from Flawed, dated Sunday, June 11th. Guy online, Royal Mail Steamer, Alaska. It was mailed at Queenstown. Neither Hen or herself had been seasick, had been miraculously preserved from being wrecked. Had been anchored at Bar Harbor caused by a dense fog, but the next day at noon orders were given to proceed on their course met at Sandy Hook, several French steamers bound for the U.S. While they were interested looking at them, one of the sailors gave a cry of horror, and when we looked up there in the dense fog just in front of ours was the steamer frame not 8 feet in front of us and both vessels moving forward. A collision seemed inevitable, but just as we were about to strike, the other boat gave a sudden turn caused by the turn of the wind and the sailors' engineering. The suddenness of the whole affair and so quick over saved the people from a panic. Their aged captain said that in all his experience he had never came so near a collision without it proving to be one. The Lord was with them. Bro Lund suggested the next day that they have morning and evening prayer in his cabin, and they had attended to it ever since and enjoyed it very much. They all take their turn praying, she says, except myself being the only woman. I am privileged. Hen has taken his turn and does beautifully. I am quite proud of him. She'd been quite highly honored by being invited by a gentleman to sing at an impromptu concert that was to be given on board the ship by a theatrical company. She consented, and they were much pleased seemingly by wanting her to repeat. From that moment, she says, all on board were my friends and I found myself quite popular. She was asked by the captain next day if she would sing in a concert the next evening given for the benefit of the Ancient Mariners or the Sailors' Home. A gentleman on board having some music among it, O Fair Dove, and afterwards, which she knew. She sang them accompanied by Joanna by a lady of the company, and was encored after each and received many compliments. Bros Lund and Talmadge said they were proud to have Utah so well represented. Hen took cold from being out in the keen wind. Otherwise they'd been well and had sharp appetites. The letter contains much more of interest, the best she ever wrote. My Helen came with her children, leaving them while she went to dentist's to have the last tooth filled. She didn't get back till we'd eaten dinner, was tired out, and had headache. I cut out 2 pairs of garments for Lil. Towards eve, have felt poorly and lounged much of the time. Tuesday 27th. Have nervous headache from laying awake nights. Girls washed. Sol was in this morning, and I read him Flaud's letter written on shipboard. I made Lil another fine garment. She goes to Hence this eve, to stop over tomorrow. Jen pinned her lace curtains onto the lawn. She's attended to the watering of the grass most of the day, and I've been able to do more sewing this morning. I dreamed that I was going on a long journey. It was cold weather, and I had previously asked my father, who seemed to be there, to give me one of the large English silk handkerchiefs that he used to have in his store. The day had arrived for me to start. There was another person besides the driver going along. I can't remember who she was, and I had put on my bonnet and wrap. And my neck was so bare, not fitting me snugly, and thinking how cold it would be. I turned to father and asked him again to let me have one of his large handkerchiefs to keep my neck warm. I thought he had smaller handkerchiefs, and told him that it was one of the large ones I wanted. He started off, as if going for it, and I waited for him. But he didn't return, and I'd about given up waiting. Whether I started or not, I can't remember. Peculiar dream. Wednesday 28th. Slept good, took 2 doses of paregoric. Received a letter from Florence dated the 11th at Mormon headquarters. The London conference where Hen is appointed to labor. Bros Lund and Solomon, the president of the mission, she says, are very desirous that I should stay a while with Hen. I told them Bro Cannon's opinion, but they seemed to differ and told me to stay right here. Bro Lund had been a father to her and Hen, she said, and she'd had several talks with him. He seems much pleased that I came. Said he was glad to have met me and was sure I would be a great blessing to them. She'd met several members of the church and they were delighted to meet women from Utah. I received an invitation card from Sister E. H. Woodmansey to meet others at her residence July 1st at 4:00 p.m. Memorial in affectionate remembrance of our beloved friend the late Mrs. Hannah T. King. Soon after, Sister Lula Richards came to see if I'd be able to go to a gathering at Dr. Ellis Ship's tomorrow evening. I hope to be able to attend both. This is the day of the martyrdom of Joseph and Hiram Smith. Thursday 29th. Did nothing but look over old letters and throw some away. Sister Woodmansey and I went in the car at eve to Dr. Ellis Ship's, where Sister Zena Young M. Wells and numbers of the good sisters were invited to hold a meeting and partake of refreshments, had an enjoyable time, came home on the 12 o'clock car. I took Jen's and my letter and mailed it to Flawed. Friday 30th. Ethel Horn helping clean what was left last week indoor and out. I attended afternoon conference of Relief Society at Assembly Hall this afternoon. I saw Bro Smith come in and wanted to go and speak for some sleeping medicine, but didn't. And soon he went out. I got Sister Horn to hail him, but he didn't hear. Dr. Hugh Cannon was speaking at the time. At close of conference I went to co-op and I was nearly baked in the sun. Inquired of George if he'd heard of Brother Smith. He said no. Soon after I saw him on the other side of the street. I told George and he went after him and brought him. He said he'd been out of town was the reason he hadn't got the word. He went to drugstore for it while I waited at Coop. Was very thankful as I've been taking Paregoric 2 or 3 weeks and nearly worn out its virtue. Saturday the 1st of July, 1893. I felt quite poorly, touch of sick headache. My out yesterday was too much, added to having too little sleep of late. But I attended the memorial in remembrance of Hannah T. King held at Sister E. H. Woodmansey's residence. We enjoyed a feast of good things for the refreshing of the soul as well as the body, the most pleasing intellectually and spiritually of any that I've previously attended. The party was made up of some of Sister King's loving friends, and a daughter of hers, Mrs. Spencer, was among them. And a daughter of Sister Howard, Mrs. Brockbank, whose loved name and sweet whining ways and deeds were eulogized by all, as well as Sister King's 2 cards neatly tied together, containing a verse from the Psalms appropriate to each person, and a verse in the same strain composed by Sister Emily H. Woodmansey, were presented to each one at the table at the close of the feast, and where all who desired, from Sisters Zena and Horn at the head of the table, arose and spoke. We met at 4 p.m. and at 9 we arose and sang, "Oh, my Father," and Sister Zena offered a beautiful prayer. A son of Sister Woodmansey saw me home. Lily went to hence, after her work was finished, to stay till after the 4th. I nearly forgot that this is Orson's 38th birthday. Sunday 2nd. Slept good, dressed this morning to go to meeting, but getting tired, gave it up, went to Orson's, where I spent a while and took supper, and went to chapel with Zine. Orson preached at Tabernacle this afternoon. Bros Barton and Rule Wells spoke at chapel. Mon 3D. Had a wakeful time till after 1 o'clock, dreadful nervous headache. The result got better of that, and afterwards taken with my old deathly spells. Jen went to drugstore and to tithing store, also to Mary's and Elle's. I cut her out 2 pairs of fine garments. While she was gone, Helen called to see if Lil could stay and go with them tomorrow to the park. She brought a letter to be enclosed with our next to Flawed. Tuesday 4th. Those deathly spells prostrated me, so I slept more than I'd expected. Firecrackers and guns going off all night. My strength and appetite left me. Those spells ceased in the afternoon. George came to see us this morning, and after he and family had spent a little while at Liberty Park, they came up here. All but George. He'd gone for his father's fine horse and buggy to take me a ride. We called at the drugstore to get me medicine and drove down to East Waterloo past President Woodruff's place. Saw him and others on his porch as we passed. Treat to a glass of buttermilk on the road, where it was sold 5 CTS a glass by a woman and 2 little girls. Returned by the way of the poorhouse. Got my medicine at Drugis, paid 50 CTS on our return. I forgot, we called at Orson's on the way down. He was writing, brought my recommend to the temple, but press Cannon's name not being signed to it, didn't take it. Zine said she'd go and get it tomorrow. While George was here this morning, a letter came from Florence to me and one to Helen enclosed, which we sent to her. She enjoys the meetings there as she never did here. There is such a spirit of humility among the saints there, which she's never witnessed at home. And she intends to inform her mind upon the principles of our faith by study and prepare herself for argument. At least she feels as though she'd like to go preaching. Sister Frances, whom they're stopping with now, she thinks is such a dear good soul, has 2 beautiful daughters, namely Alice and Mary. They are not yet in the church, though Mary is very favorable, but Alice is more stubborn. Their mother is anxious they should come into the church. They seem to take a great notion to her, she says, and she thinks she will have a good influence with them. Shall try my best. I commenced a reply, Jen having started a letter this morning. I told her I couldn't help thinking how I'd prayed that her associations in society might meet with a change and she be placed where she'd grow in knowledge and love of righteousness above all worldly allurements, such as were being thrown around her, etc., etc. And I felt that the Lord had brought about the change, though in so different a way than any that I'd ever conceived of, etc., etc. I had anticipated spending a sick, lonely day. But being freed from deathly spells, and George's family being sent here by him, and the lovely ride he gave me, brought to mind my morning prayer, and I could well give the Lord the praise, and George, who followed his naturally kind instinct when he saw me in the condition that he found me this morning, when I told him that I hadn't expected to see anybody today, brought about such an admirable change, such goodness I cannot forget. And may the Lord reward him fourfold, and bring him to seek after and find the greatest eternal life. Wednesday 5th. After fireworks and firing of guns were over, I slept good, had none of those deathly spells till late this morning. My bill from Dinwiddie's was left here, told the boy I'd pay it next month. It is 14.05. I finished my letter to Florence. Jen's making a calico dress for Lil. Afternoon had more of those spells. Thursday 6th. Slept good after my nerves settled late to rise. Hence sent to see if Lil could come and stop with the children. She going out with George this evening. Lil pleased to go. Dr. Dodgy called, said Sister Kimball and Whitney told him I was sick, couldn't imagine what it meant till he told me that Sister Harriet K. had been nearly paralyzed, and he'd been to Meadowville to treat her. And she was now at Sister Whitney's, but was able to be around again. And he thought she'd be up to see me tomorrow. Friday 7th. Arose early and breakfasted with Jen. Lil returned from hence, said little Horace took to vomiting yesterday, so hence didn't go out as she expected. I felt very weak through my body and made it worse watering the grass, the girls having all they're able to do indoors. I had 4 deathly spells yesterday is the cause of my debility today. Began a letter to Florence towards Eve. Jen overdid herself. Saturday 8th. Dreamed Horace was with me, also dreamed of going to Sister Noon's, was strolling up around my father's old place on the west side feeling sad and lonely, and I suddenly bethought myself that Sarah Noon, Harriet, and Betsy still lived in the old place, which cheered me, and I went and found them and embraced them. Harriet had a child little girl. I'm feeling weak in body, and the girls are not strong. Lily goes to Helen's to stop over. Sunday after dinner Jen had to lay down, had pained her and felt sick at her stomach. She threw up and was quickly relieved. Afternoon, I finished the 3D garment for Lil and sewed on one of Jen's. The man's cut our grass again. Son. 9th. Nothing of note transpired. Jen read some to me from Key to Theology. Been more feeble today. Finished my letter to Florence. Commenced Friday. Mon 10. Jen and I received letters from Flawed. They are most encouraging in a spiritual point of view. I received an invitation from Harriet Kimball this morning to go with her and several others to Saltaire at 3 this afternoon. She sent Farrington with his hack at the hour. Herself being an invalid, the doctor advised her to go often for her health. She invited Mary Whitney, myself, and Mary Ellen, Amanda, Christine, and Lucy Kimball to accompany her, paying all the expenses. Christine didn't go, and Lucy misunderstood the time, but followed in the next train with her Lyle and Olive Walker. The invalids grew very tired, but after lunch, hearing that we'd have to stay there till 11 o'clock, there was a feeling of dismay till one kind man found a room with a cot where Harriet, Mary Ellen, and I laid down. I rested till my pain and weariness all left me, and I enjoyed the evening meeting, numbers of friends, Orson, Zine, Bud, and Mail being among the crowd. And with music and dancing of the young, the hours flit by quicker than we'd thought, for we sat in the car an hour before starting back. The seats were hard, and I was very tired before I got home. Jen had been worried over my not coming. Arrived home at 12 o'clock. Tuesday 11th. Was stronger than I'd been since the day after George took me a ride down to West Waterloo on the 4th. Ella here yesterday and today making Lily a dress, finished it and began one for General. I got young Watts to clean an old carpet and rake the big cobbles out of the walk on the north and east sides of my place. Soul's gone to doing the same to his. Orson sent my recommend to Temple. I'm to go Thursday if all's well. An invitation came from Ellen Clausen to a visit at her house Thursday the 88ts. Near sundown, I found what's doing the work wrong and took the rake out of his hands and raked back some dirt, and went the length of my walk on east side to the corner and graded it over Mr. Adams, our neighbor. Asked me if I was working out my poll tax, and some little boys stood gazing as if surprised to see me working out there. I was used up, but not sorry, I'd done the work. Wednesday, 12. Watts worked inside my yard, cleaned it of weeds, cobbles, etc. And I watched to see that things were done right. Helen came to accompany Jen to Dr. Doggy's, but they were too late, and so went Adolph's to see his sick boy Newell. He's some better. Lil went a stop with Helen's children. Thursday, 13th. Slept but little, but was up on time to go to Temple. Soul accompanied me, he to go through and I to visit Harriet. Kimball came late. We were taken through all the rooms by Bro Armstrong and seated in the best room where we rested and enjoyed ourselves till 3 p.m. Lucy W. Kimball brought us refreshments from the dining apartment. Though I'd taken some buns when I gave Apostle L. Snow my recommend, he shook my hand, but after reading it through he said, "I want to shake hands again with Sister Helen Mar Whitney." I saw numbers of my friends, men and women, who shook my hand, this being my first visit to the temple. I walked from there to Ellen Clausen's, was very tired and laid down a while. There were 6 invited besides me. She has a beautiful home. Friday, 14th. Put down carpet in my hall this forenoon, put my children's photo group inside of pasteboards and enclosed it in an envelope to send to Florence in London. Elle came up to bring Jen's dress that she's made and her Mary with her. Near night I worked out in my backyard and on the east sidewalk undoing some more of Watt's work. Lil came home from Helen's. Jen canned some pie plant that she got yesterday at tea store. Saturday, 15th. Felt sick after eating each meal and my head ached. Ripped up my old dining room carpet and turned the hose on it after laying it on the grass. Sewed 2 pieces together for crumb cloth. Cleaned the east porch by putting the hose on it and watered lawn while doing it. Orson called. Jen bought a lot of black currants and preserved them. Sister Hubbard of Willard sent 2 boxes of raspberries by express, writing a postal to Jen to whom she'd agreed last April to send them, that they'd be here on the 15th. She went to the express office and paid freightage 30 CTS and to Wiscombe's to get them to bring them up. She worried over their being late coming, and near night gave Souls Farney the streetcar fare to go and see if they were at W's, fearing they'd be spoiled if they were not got before Monday. After sending Farney, the berries came safe and sound. Son. 16th. Sick after eating breakfast, top of my head aching, laid down considerable of the day better after taking tea and lunch, thankful for it. Jen not so well from doing so much walking, etc. yesterday, but put up berries, as they'd spoiled by tomorrow if not canned. Lil and Lee went to Helen's. Part of today's been very sultry. Lil returned and went to evening meeting. Mon 17th. Felt some better. Jen's knee hurting her. She injured it over a year ago. Lil and Lee went to Helen's and she and children were intending to come up here, so came afternoon. George came near night to take his family and me a ride. Lee went along. We went around East and West Waterloo and on the way treated again to a drink of buttermilk. I did a little work previously, mending a nightgown and putting in new sleeves. Made my head worse and sick at my stomachy indigestion must cause it. Jen received a letter from Ed with a $65 draft on McCormick's Bank. Forgot that Soul's wife was in to see us in the forenoon. She appears to be a very good woman and pleasant to converse with. Tuesday, 18. I took water for indigestion and let work alone. Had no headache. My appetite is poor, but think the ride yesterday did me more good than medicine would. Jen's knee real bad. Tried painkiller. Thinks it's helped it. Today is the old folks excursion to Ogden. Wednesday, 19th. Cut out and nearly made a fine garment. Jen's knee well from using painkiller. She went and got her money, $65, and paid $20 to Wiscombe's. Bought clothes for Lee and shoes for Florence, a wrapper for me, and also my medicine, etc. Jane T. Simmons came to see me. Will stop all night. George here at evening. Thursday, 20th. I lengthened the skirt and sleeves of my dress that Jen got me and commenced a letter to Florence at Eve. Sister Alder called and spent a while this forenoon. Helen brought her children and went with Jen to Dr. Doggy's, where she, Jen, was treated for the first time. He found her in a worse condition than he'd thought. Helen was witness to the state of her womb. It's grown worse from not being attended to before. She must not work much as it'll inflame that part. She can't leave as he is to treat her every other day for several weeks. This is a great disappointment to her, and will be to Ed, who expected he'd be able to send for her in a few days. Friday 21st. Felt blue and the girls also over our prospects, but I tried to think of the blessings that were ours and talked to Jen of the bright side of life, proposing that she read something before prayers, so she read from the Key to Theology chapter 14. The world of spirits. This drove away darkness, and our hearts were lightened of their burdens. The sunshine of peace shone down upon us after pouring out our hearts to him who is ever true to his promise. Being disappointed at not getting any word from Florence for over a week, Jen went down to learn from Lute what Johnny Owen had written about her, as I feared she might be sick. He'd written that Hen had rented rooms and they were keeping house, and he was to stop with them 2 weeks. That Hen was engaged studying all the time. That Johnny had taken Flawed out to view the sights, making a day of it, as she was feeling so lonesome and couldn't get Hen to go out. He'd taken pity on her. Said Hen was doing splendid, all of which was cheering to us. There was quite a breeze near night, and a little thunder, no rain. The weather has been hot and sultry for a week past. Saturday 22d. I filled a big hole by my east doorstep with cobbles and gravel. Lee helped me draw them in his wheelbarrow. The filling of the old well had caved in again. Grass cutters here again. I persuaded the old man to not cut the grass oftener than once in 3 weeks. It don't need it, and we can't afford it. We got Ethel Horn to clean 2 east rooms and bathroom. Deck called to get the children's names, etc. He said Dolph's Newell was worse, has brain fever now. LOL. Winder's baby has fallen and broken his arm at the elbow. Jen and I wrote to Flawed yesterday, but too late for the postman to take, and it won't go before Monday next. The wind blowing and sky clouded. Sun. 23d. Had a heavy rain, thunder, and lightning. Brought back the headache by writing to Sister Angie Frink yesterday. Jen read an excellent sermon by Bro Penrose in yesterday's news, and finished Key to Theology. Mrs. Adams spent a short time with us, and also Sister Horn. George came near night. Said little Helen was sick with a cold, a sore throat. Mon 24th. It rained in the night. We all went to Helen's. The jarring of the car made me have a touch of sick head ache. Had to lay down most of the afternoon. Felt better when we returned. Lil stayed all night. Helen was worn out from loss of sleep. This day has been very quiet in the city. Tuesday 25th. Horace's 70th birthday. Weather cloudy, not so sultry as was yesterday. Quite a cool breeze towards evening. I dug gravel from my sidewalk this morning and hauled it in Lee's wheelbarrow to fill another hole by the east doorstep, which fell in again Sunday after the rain. I'd done the same only Saturday. I finished the letter commenced to Sister Frink the 22nd. Jen went to DR's to be treat. She got a letter from Ed, who'd rented a house and was expecting her to come with children to stop till fall. An awful disappointment to Ed. Received a letter from Flawed and one enclosed for Hent. Wednesday 26th. Cloudy and threatening. I enjoy the cloudy weather. The sun's been so hot. Sister Crowther came up and stayed a while. Looks very thin and poorly in body. Jen went to Main Street this morning to get salmon and tomatoes for my breakfast and some bleached for my garments. I finished a garment of Jen's today. George called at Eve. Jen went by my persuasion to the ladies' mass meeting at the theater, had to stand, and came home after 9 o'clock. Thursday 27th. Couldn't sleep till 11 for the thunder and lightning and rain, which was very heavy. Jen got home in the nick of time. The trough on the north porch had fallen at one end, and she put on her raincoat and went out and got a pole under clothesline and propped it up while rain was pouring down, and it soaked her hair, and the lightning was fearful. She went to DR's today. He warned her to keep off her feet. She's felt more like laying down today. George came to see if Lil could go and take care of the children tomorrow, as Helen wants to go with the Tabernacle Choir to the lake. Polly Stevens Watson came to see Jen near night. I cut out 2 garments for myself and nearly made one. Wrote a sheet to Flawed. Friday 28th. Arose at 6, in time to breakfast with Lil. Jen, not yet up, felt worse for early rising. And having only pancakes and coffee didn't taste good nor set well on my stomach. Finished writing to Florence. Lil went to Helen's after doing up the work. Finished my garment, though so tired, felt sick. Watered the trees and grass. Phoebe and by Kimball here. They'd first called on Soul and his bride. Saturday 29th. Feel worse today for writing and sewing. Have had to lay down most of the day. Ethel Horn cleaned 3 rooms and Lil cleaned and worked after coming from Helen's. Jen went to DR's. We're without a cent of cash. She used the last to pay her car fare I had to attend to watering the lawn. A music teacher with an improved mode called and asked if I'd a piano or organ. I had an organ, I told him, but the bellows had burst, etc. He wanted to try it, and he sung 3 or 4 snatches of familiar songs, Way Down on the Swanee River, Love at Home, and whistled to the accompaniment, Way Down on the Swanee River. He didn't see anything the matter with the organ. He said he made it sound grand, and his voice was deep and melodious. He wanted to know if I didn't want to learn. I had to smile at him, told him no, my poor health and age would not admit of it, said he, a lady 70 years old is taking lessons. Lil was as much charmed with his singing as I was. He looked to be about my age. Son, 30th. Last night was as remarkably cool as the previous one was warm. I think it was the warmest night of the season. Today has been cloudy and cool. Lil and Lee went to Helen's and Jen, and I've spent a lonesome day. I've been better only when exercising, which brings on my headache and sick feelings, obliging me to lay down after dark. We were surprised by bro and sister Dinwiddie paying us a visit. It was very pleasant with an interchange of news of Hen and Flawed, etc. Mom, 31st, weather cloudy with slight sprinkle in the forenoon. I can't do anything without bringing on headache. The least exercise causes it, laying down eases it. But that makes me cough worse. Idleness is harder to bear when one lives in seclusion with no society, but everyone has work and cares enough of their own, or are seekers of pleasures, etc. Jen went to DR's today and asked him, by my request, if he knew of anything that would help me. He gave a subscription, but she missed seeing George, whom we'd asked to lend us $5 as he'd gone to dinner, and couldn't get my medicine. Doctor said it would give me an appetite, that my headache and sick feelings were caused by my weak nerves. This I knew before he said. Jen was much better than he'd anticipated. She called and bought some apples and vegetables at Tithing Store, and they were sent up. She called at Mary Whitney's on her way. Tuesday, August 1st. Felt a trifle better, though not able to sit up much. Lil went to see George Bourne at the Coop this morning to get $5, but he'd not got it. Said he'd get it today. She was tired out on her return and had to lay down. Another lonely day I've spent. Was considerably better towards evening. George and Brady came, brought the $5. I told him how lonely we were and to tell Helen and children to come tomorrow, Wednesday 2nd. No headache today, though had to lay down most of the time. Helen here with children and George came to dinner, made the day cheery. Jen went to the DR's. The treatment so severe she could hardly endure it. The first time she suffered anything to speak of. She got my medicine at drugstore. A hot day. Thursday 3D. Lil and Jen went to fast meeting, paid 50 CTS order for my donation. I'd a touch of headache and had to lay down. I've been threatened by griping yesterday and today. Jen spoke to DR about it yesterday, and he said I'd be wise to take castor oil before it got the start of me. I made fun of it, but before night was convinced and took a dose as prescribed. I finished a short letter to Flawed commenced yesterday. Friday 4th, remarkably better, nearly made me a garment, taking an occasional rest. A slight spasm came on me when laying down, have had the same 2 or 3 times this week. Jen has put up a little fruit and done some ironing and sewing. Lil did some cleaning of cupboards, etc. Saturday 5th. I cleaned my parlor and sitting room and finished my garment by stopping to rest numerous times whilst dusting my parlor. I'd 2 callers. First, Sister Morgan from Mill Creek Ward, who works in the temple. And then Orson came. Jen read Flawed's letter to him, which he enjoyed, said give his love when we wrote and maybe he'd write her when he got time, etc. Jen washed a few things, and Ethel being sick, the girls, and I have had a hard day after resting. Jen went to drugstore and got me medicine and wine. I had light spasms through last night, but only 3 or 4 since this morning. Feel very thankful indeed. I dreamed of Orson K. Whitney returning from a foreign mission with one of his brothers, can't remember which. When they came to see me, I arose from my chair, and having heard how well he'd performed his mission and how fine he looked, I gazed into his face, handsome and youthful as it was before he became a slave to drink, and we warmly embraced each other when I awoke. Sunday 6th. Have felt my day's work yesterday, a slight headache, but no return of stagnation of blood. Hope the nerve-strengthening medicine prescribed by the DR for that affliction is going to help me. Lily gone to meeting and expects to stop and attend evening meeting at Chapel. Soul called in this morning and, because I didn't fall into line with the common herd in condemning a poor woman of whom I knew nothing, except through reports, told me he had no patience with me and left in disgust. Jen went to evening meeting, and a shower came up while on the way home. Lily came with her. Mon 7th. We all went to Helen's. Lil took Lee and Soul's Heber by the 20 ward route this morning. And afternoon Jen went to DR's and I to Helen's with little Florence. My head ached slightly and I had to lounge much of the afternoon. Lily stayed there, quite a cool breeze blowing at eve. Jen feels pretty well. Soul's wife told her that Orson was here while we were away. He was over to see Soul. Tuesday 8th. Rained some in the night, little sprinkle this morning, making it so cool had to put on a warmer dress and close my door half the day. Orson called on his way home. He explained things concerning the fuss that's been stirred up through the doings of a wicked, indolent, and worthless man and his wife. She's defended him and written complaints to President Woodruff against the teachers over the head of the BP of this ward, etc. By his Orson's advised, the teachers went today and made peace with her, confessing the wrong done her. Bro, Watts having said things to her about her wrongdoings which he had no right to do. Soul has been here since and told me that he'd told Orson he thought had I been present when Lucifer was cast out that I'd taken his part. One replied that I was present at that time and if I'd been on his, the devil's, side I'd been cast out with him, etc. Instead of being where I am, that I was like our mother, towards the poor and the friendless. I wouldn't join those who were trying to crush another under their feet. This was said in good humor. And the conversation turned upon the message of President Cleveland just out. They've struck a hard and fatal blow to the communities dependent on the silver mining in these parts. It'll affect Jen and me, as Ed can't hope for another position to compare with the one he may lose by this change. Wednesday 9th. Jen and I laid awake thinking upon present and future prospects. Lil came this morn, and Helen with children about noon. Soul's wife over here a few minutes. Jen went to DR's. George came to dinner. Henriette Simmons called this morn to invite me to her daughter Joie's tomorrow. E.B. Wells is to be there to dinner at 12 o'clock. I've had headache and felt poorly most of the day. Thursday 10th. Letters came from Flawed to me, Jen, Helen, and her Helen, and were very interesting. I got left by the car and had to walk to Joie's 2 blocks east and 1 north. Wells was not there for an hour or more, and Sister Woolley was late. We enjoyed the dinner and visit. I was exhausted and panting for breath before I got there, but rested the afternoon and walked home. With me she came in and heard Flawed's letters read. Lil took the letter from Flawed to Hent this evening as she went down. Friday 11th. Wrote a sheet and a half to Flawed, though resting occasionally. Me head ached from it. Jen wrote, and also Hent. Lil came home early and brought hence. The washing came home and some things we threw with the dirty clothes. Watts work equals the laundry for sliding. Jen went to DR's and to tithing store and meat market on her return. She's prepared peaches, got there to preserve. Been cloudy most of the day. Saturday 12th. My throat sore this morn. I felt the writing yesterday. Tried to clean sitting room, the girls not able to help us. Jen had to sweep and do part of the dusting. I put the water on the lawn after the grass was cut, and while warm took a drink of ice water, causing a chill, had a fever and pain in my left side, and a spasm came on while laying down. Couldn't eat much dinner. Girls did a small washing this morning before cleaning up. I'd a bad dream last night denoting trouble and sickness. My mother was with me. Some way my left hand had been cut badly inside, but bled only a little. Next I remember I laid on the floor and blood was flowing from a rupture across my bowels. And I knew that there was nothing that could save me. Bolivar Roberts died suddenly Thursday last near midnight. Son, 13th. Sick with cold in my head, throat and lungs, and Jen has the same. I wet cloth with coal oil and put on my throat and lungs. My cough worse than for some time past, and my side is no better. Another deathly spell while laying down. Lily went to the 2 meetings. We've had a heavy wind and thunderstorm this afternoon, and glorious rainbow at eve. I had another chill before dinner. Mon 14th. My side hurts me better otherwise, though poorly enough still. I felt that another day at home, so lonely, I couldn't endure, so Jen and I and children went to spend the afternoon at L. Decker's, and Lily went to Helen's, met M. Piper there and her children. I took a chill going down in car, the wind so cool. Mary W. came and spent a while. Helen heard we were there and called. She'd been to the store, had been sick, vomiting the day before, and looked as though she ought to be in bed. She was thankful that Lily came to help her. Deck was engaged fixing up Mrs. Dye's lawn for a party. M. Wells invited me to it, but I declined. Lute Whitney went with the young ladies to play with the mandolin club. M. Piper will go to Chicago with George. Tuesday 15th. Had a sick forenoon. Jen took children to Helen Bourne's birthday party at 3 o'clock. I wrote 2 pages to Flawed to pass the time, which made my side pain me worse. Jen Calder came to see Jen and stayed a while talking to me. Was glad of her company. Had to lounge most of the day. Jen came home tired out. I retired after taking my 2nd dose of castor oil and applying a mustard poultice. Wednesday 16th. I had the worst night. My sides so painful and wasn't able to rise till late. Lounged most of the day. Applied coal oil outside and in yesterday, and this forenoon used camphor and oil, then turpentine and oil, but to no effect. Thursday 17th. Girls did the washing. My side no better. I sent to Seoul and borrowed quinine, taking 3 pills a day. Jen went to see the DR and described my pain. He said it was pleurisy, told her to use hot lard and turpentine or hot poultice of linseed, and approved of my using quinine. Friday 18th. Remained in bed and applied hot poultices all day. The weather hot and sultry added to my discomfort, but it helped my side at eve. The pain took me in another place by my left breast. I put turpentine on one of the poultices and applied it and was relieved. I'd coughed till that side of my lung pained me, but didn't cough after using the poultice. We received a letter from Flawed. Lily went to Helen's. Helen came up to see me near night. Saturday 19th. Felt like a different person. Took a bath on rising. Full of gratitude to be relieved of pain once more. Ethel Horn helped clean the rooms. Weather sultry. George Bourne brought my sleeping medicine last evening. He got it of Bros Smith, who, at last, made his appearance at Coop's store. I'd been without it one night. Only I took Grafenberg pills last evening and again this eve. As I stepped over the old well before my east door, the dirt gave way, and I had to get Lee to bring gravel and cobbles, and filled it up again the 6th time. It's caved in this summer, and I'm nearly discouraged over the thing. Son. 20th. Home as usual. Sol came and sat a while, and little Helen spent the day. Lily attended 2 meetings a Presbyterian minister preached at. Tab and Dr. Talmage. Weather cool and cloudy towards eve. Polly and husband Mr. Watson called. Jen read a sermon in D. News in the forenoon, and afternoon commenced the Book of Mormon reading aloud to me. Mon 21st. Feel better only when using my eyes. Brings on the headache. Lily went to Helen's this morn. Jen to DR's in the afternoon. She received a letter and draft for $10 from Ed. I wrote half a sheet to Flawed, and Jen finished her letter to her. We've had 2 showers, wind, thunder, and lightning, and the sun played hide and coop with the clouds. Tuesday 22nd. 65 years ago this morning I entered this probationary state, and from my 5th year have been kept within the fold of Christ, and blessed with what is of more worth than all else besides a perfect knowledge of the truth of Mormonism, the gospel of salvation as taught by the Savior of the world. I was surprised by Sister Sarah M. Kimball and Elmira Taylor giving me a call. My 3 eldest girls here, and all the children to spend the afternoon. Little Helen made a sachet and presented me, and her mother gave me 2 pretty handkerchief and Jen a hairbrush. Wednesday 23d. Had a touch of pleurisy in the same places, applied oil and turpentine. Jen has a hard trial before her, and I feel troubled over it. Doctor has told her the price that he'll charge if he performs the last operation, which he will require 2 other DRS to be present, $100. Which we are not able to raise. The Lord only knows how we are to act under the circumstances. She wrote to Polly to come and see her, and she came at eve. Said she'd come and take Jen's place in the work and wait on her if she wanted her. The girls did the washing this forenoon. Received another letter from Flawed. Hen is so engaged in the work of the gospel that time flies more swiftly than he has ever before experienced, and he's improving all the time. Flawed is busy with her music and religious studies, etc. Thursday 24th. Better in body than I've been for some time. Watered lawn. Felt a touch of pleurisy afternoon. Another lonely day I've had. Jen had a cold in her face. Took quinine, and it helped her. Lily walked to Helen's. Jen did the ironing this morning. The filling of the well fell in again. Friday, 25th. The first day I've been free from headache and felt so strong. Watered the lawn and looked over a big pile of papers reading considerable. Jen's face swollen and she's a pain in her side that makes her feel sick. Took quinine near night. I, with Helen's and Heber's help, brought stones and gravel to fill the hole by my east door. Lily came home leaving Lee at Helen's to stay all night. Saturday 26th. Felt the effects of using my eyes yesterday, and in addition to my cold. Mr. Hutchinson, our old boarder, called to see us. He's from Denver. His wife died over a year ago. Jen went to DR's and to other places, ordered 80 CTS worth of coal. Bro. Patrick came to see her about paying our bill $40 at his store. He is distressed like everybody else. I've brought 2 wheelbarrows full of gravel from the sidewalk and put it over the cobbles at my east door. Would I could work all the time. The days would pass more cheerily, but all my strength is soon exhausted. Sunday 27th. Elias Kimball paid us a forenoon visit, enjoyed it very much. Lily attended both meetings. I wrote a postal to Sister Crowther. Jen read in Book of Mormon before prayers. Afternoon read me G.Q. Canon sermon and other articles in last evening news. Mon 28th. Watered my lawn all day. Lily went to hunt. Afternoon. Jen put up a bushel of tomatoes got at the tithing store. Received an encouraging letter from Ed, and one enclosed from his employer Whiting giving hope of his continuing work in the mine. I wrote 2 pages to Flawed. Still feeling poorly in body at Eve. George came with Lee, and a basket of blue plums. Said little Horace was sick with a cold, and wanted to know if Lily could stay and help hunt. Tuesday 29th. Orson came to bid us goodbye. He had been invited to go with the choir by parties offering a free pass. He requested an interest in my prayers. I replied that I never failed to pray for him, but he thought maybe I'd pray more fervently if he requested it, etc. Sister Crowther came, was feeble, having been very sick of late. Soul's wife was in and took lunch with us. Little Helen came to tell us that baby was better. I was feeling quite poorly, and after lunch an awful spell took me, prostrating me, laid down and slept. Sister Crowther went home while I was asleep. Felt so badly I had to go to bed early from the first spell. I took a high fever and took quinine, felt quite sick through the night. Those spells grew more frequent though lighter than usual. Wednesday 30th. Felt unable to rise and dress till taking a little nourishment, no appetite, and sickened at everything. My bowels in a bad state and griped. Those death-like spells ceased towards night. A letter came from Flawed, and I commenced an answer in the afternoon. It was night before I knew it. I'd spent nearly half the day in bed. Jens felt stronger to do the work, and she went down to Sister Patrick's afternoon. They are in deep trouble over their son Joseph's losing his foot and ankle, being hurt at Saltaire by being knocked from the car step by a woman coming out just as he stepped on. Bro Patrick was on the way to Chicago and was telegraphed to and will arrive home tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Thursday 31st. We're having quite a change in the weather. Rained last night and night before. Wind quite cool. I feel very weak and little appetite. Was 1 o'clock last night before I slept. Jen went to and got meat, flour, cheese, and crackers from there to Mary Kimball's and Mary Whitney's, found the latter gone to Chicago. Wonders will never cease. She can't be feeling the hard times. We can't afford to go to the Saltaire. We were visited by Aunt Mary Ellen. She was up to see Soul about going to work in Temple tomorrow with her at Eve. The wind blew furiously. I felt nervous, hating to go to bed, sat up till after 10. Friday the 1st of September. Enjoyed a good night's sleep. The wind went down and rain came bright and cheery this morning. I took breakfast with Jen and Lee the first time for a good while. Finished my letter, commenced to Flawed Wed, last enclosed it with Jen's. Our lawn was cut again today. George and Lee drove up at evening. Horace is better, he said, but still weak. Wanted to know if we needed Lily. I'm much stronger today. Washed out some handkerchiefs. Jen washed a few articles, but I would do my own handkerchiefs. Saturday 2nd. Up in time for breakfast, watered lawn, and filled in some more gravel before my door. Ethel Horn cleaned our rooms and kitchen floor. Jen did the other work. Both of us tired enough to lay down. After noon, she went to town, first to the bank and drew $40. Got me medicine and things at tithing store and mutton at the market. Son, 3D, lovely George and family here. Lily went to conference at Tabernacle and returned home with them at evening. While eating dinner, our clock fell, the bracket had split and slipped off the screw, the inkstand emptied on the new rag carpet. Lucky the children were at the table with the rest of us. George fixed it up again, but some wire was broken and clock wouldn't go. I've had a cold in my upper left jaw, quite sore today, and my head's ached since yesterday's dinner. Going without eating till late, ate more than I'd done before for some time. Was the cause. I think I'd been free from it for 3 days. Mon 4th, Jen went and paid $25 to Patrick's and went to Zine's, found her writing to Orson. She asked after my health, Orson wanting her to tell him how I was. She told her how sick I was taken the afternoon that he left us and how alarmed she was. The latter she never told me till after I was better. A letter from Ed says that mine is to shut down and he expects to be here by the 15th. Our prospects look gloomy. I've watered the lawn, hard work moving the hose about all day. Tuesday 5th, attended to watering lawn again and looked over papers, selecting a few to send away. Zine called at Eve with Miss Van Cott, who was searching for a house to rent. Jen went a dentist to get Lee's tooth pulled, but he changed his mind when there and backed out. She got apples, green corn, etc. at tithing store and a fine roast as well. I've had to lay down considerable. Wednesday 6th. Have gone over more papers and done up some to mail. The death of Lyman O. Littlefield was noticed in last evening news, and a brief sketch of his life. I've felt more comfortable today, not having to lay down, but have a touch of gravel. I've drank a good deal of cold water lately, I fear is the cause. Thursday 7th, fast day, but we'd forgotten it. There was a thunderstorm that would prevented my going. Jen, though in the midst of washing, thought she'd go and I told her, but I thought it unwise, the wind blowing and rain pouring down, and she perspiring, but she read some in Book of Nephi which brought the spirit of prayer. I prayed and the storm did not prevent our receiving a blessing. We bought a bushel of peaches for 75 CTS at our door. Jen is canning them. She went to town after dinner, and Sister Paramore called to see her just as she'd left. Jen got my medicine for stagnation of the blood. I'm not so strong today. Friday 8th, lovely after the storm. Jen put up peaches yesterday and today. We received letters from Sister Pomeroy. Went with Jen and children to visit Hent, and Lil walked from the car 5 blocks leaning on Jen, nearly gave out before reaching there, laid down most of the time. Elle came up and spent the afternoon bringing her girl and Ems. Saturday 9th. I cleaned my sitting room, washed windows, looking glasses in that, and bathroom wire door frames, hearth and door steps. Ethel never thinks of using water when doing Saturday's work. 2 or 3 times I've told her to wash window kills, hearth and door steps and bathroom floor. Jen cleaned the other rooms except parlor. Mr. Cripps, Dinwiddie's bookkeeper, just called to see me with a note of introduction from Florence. He went to London the same time she and Hen did. He speaks in high praise of them both. Said Flawed was a great blessing to Hen, and others thought a great deal of her, that she was doing good, and that her voice was considered extraordinary. There was quite a help to the singing at meetings. Son 10th was the first one up, but felt poorly till near night. I wrote part of a letter to Flawed George, and Brad wrote up bringing a basket of plum sole. Was in a few minutes. His Helen and Heber took dinner here. Jen has read to me a sermon in the news delivered by Elder John Morgan August 13th and other interesting things, and also read from Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants. I've coughed worse than common. There's a cool breeze and has given me a cold. Mon 11th. I feel much better than yesterday. Was up early. We received an interesting letter from Florence. She's commenced her French studies as well as singing and music lessons. We've similar weather to yesterday's, windy and colder afternoon. It dries the lawn, which I water daily. We finished our letters to Flawed and mailed them. The Tabernacle Choir carries off the second prize of $1,000, Yester's News informs us, and Professor Stevens will wear a gold medal as being the conductor of a winning organization. Tuesday 12th, cold, so I built a little fire in the grate. Wrote to Sister Pomeroy, wrote an order on the bank for $10 and sent it by Soul, as he wanted the $3 that we were owing him on the refrigerator. Troubled with gravel again. Wednesday 13th, felt better than usual. Wrote more to Sister Pomeroy. Hent here afternoon with Florence. Jen had been down to drug store for me, and to tithing store and market, also to Mary Whitney's, who got home with the choir this morning, also Mamie, Bud and Clark. Quite a cold wind sat by kitchen stove all the afternoon. Thursday 14th. Pleasant and warm in the sun, I went to see Rachel Simmons and found her gone. Sat a while and rested, and returned. The walk didn't hurt me. Afternoon had a touch of pleurisy and gravel. Jen received an encouraging letter from Ed the Silver. Mines are opening, he wrote. Friday 15th. Warm day, felt pretty well cut out and nearly made Lily a chemise towards Eve. Gravel began afflicting me. I received a kindly answer from Sister Angie Frink by morning mail. She's been long afflicted and still is with hemorrhage and nearly bleeds to death. She longs to return to Zion and thought to have been home long before this, but her faith in the Lord is great. Saturday 16th. Still under the weather towards night, I finished Lil's chemise. Jen cleaned my room and did all the work and put up a lot of tomatoes. Sun. 17th. A very sick day. I began Saturday to take the sleeping medicine prescribed by Dr. Doggy as the same that Bro Smith has fixed for me, which cost not a 3D as much, but the effect it had was very different. It made me very nervous and gave me palpitation of the heart and made me sick. Hent came in near night, breaking the sad monotony. She'd been to Orson's. He'd just returned from Chicago and found Zine with a stranger by her side who came on the 15th. He sent a souvenir to me by her, a breastpin that he saw made of gold wire into my name, Helen. He'd brought the same to his little girls. Miss Babcock and her brother came with Orson. Mon 18th. Feel like another person after a good night's sleep. Orson came over. He's quite overdone by the tramping and unnatural course of living since leaving home, with his feet blistered and altogether out of order. He described a good many interesting scenes and curiosities at the fair, etc. I wrote to Flawed and mailed it with Jen's. Have sat up all day. Jen went to Drugis to get me sweet spirits of nitre, to tithing store and market for eatables. Tuesday 19th. Received a short letter from Florence. I cut out and nearly made Lily a chemise and watered the lawn. Was afflicted with gravel towards night and satisfied that my working is the cause. The quieter I am, the less I have of it. Wednesday 20th. George Bourne came just as I was going to bed last eve to bring me some sleeping medicine got of Bro Smith. I was very grateful to get it. Had just taken paregoric. I was in great misery from gravel, but grew easier after retiring, but am afflicted with it today. Weather cold and disagreeable. Gave up going to Sister Crowther's, not being well enough. Jen with children, Soul's wife, and Heber went and had a pleasant time. The weather changed for the better. I finished Lily's chimes and wrote to Sister Frink towards night. Thursday 21st. Better, being relieved of gravel, and the day made pleasant by Helen, Lily and children coming up. George here to dinner. Jen washed a little this forenoon, and with the other work was made sick at evening, pain proceeding from the womb. Friday 22nd. Feel pretty well, have a good appetite. Had 2 or 3 callers. Phoebe Kimball and Mary Whitney came and stayed a while. I did a little watering of the lawn. Saturday 23d. Jen's been kept awake 2 nights, was sick Friday night, and Lee puking and purging all last night. She cleaned the west rooms and washed up floor to bathroom and the doorsteps, etc., to east rooms as well. I tidied up the latter and feel grateful for it. Wrote an order of $8 on bank. Jen got me some medicine for kidneys. Lee feels all right. I've watered the lawn. Sun. 24th. I intended to go to see Zine and her baby and to evening meeting, but was tired out before Eve. Jen went to hence with children, from there to Orson's and to meeting. They were in hopes I'd come. They were naming their babe, called him Albert Owen after her brother who was drowned, and her father. My brother Charlie came to see me, spent but a few minutes, had been to the tabernacle and had to hurry back to take his place as night watchman at. Mon 25th. Wrote to Florence, received an interesting letter from her telling of her blessings, spiritual and temporal, received in answer to prayer, and the kind friends she'd made both in and out of the church, etc. Enclosed were some delicate sprigs from Kew Gardens. Jen received 2 letters from Ed, a $50 check and 10 in greenback. She went to the DR's and paid him part of what she owed him. And he's to perform the last operation this week. She went at evening to see if she could get Sister Paramore to come and nurse her. Hint, Brady and Genevieve were up towards night. Tuesday 26th. We are enjoying pleasant weather. The doctor has called, will come tomorrow to perform the operation. Sister Paramore came to say she'd be here in the morning. I'm feeling comfortable, though not as strong as yesterday. Wednesday 27th. Dr. Doggy came bringing 2 others, one a Stringham to assist him. Also a young lady came who practices going out with Doggy, and Sister Paramore was present at the operation. It was performed in my south room, and they took her into her room when it was over. I took care of Florence. Jen would have the doors locked for fear I would be present. Sister Paramore came out to prepare and warm her room. When hearing her groans, I went and she said, "Have Ma go out." She feared for me. I was affected at the start, my back trembling, but overcame it. She became very tired, body and head paining her, and had a fever when doctor came at 4 o'clock. But he gave orders for her not to move, and after attending to her told the nurse to watch her all night, that she was in a critical state. I finished a letter she'd commenced to Ed to have it mailed. We've read of Ranch Kimball's death in evening news. Thursday 28th. Jen spent a better night than was expected. The doctor was here before sunrise to attend to her, found her comfortable and bright, visited her after noon, told her her pulse was as strong as his, but she must lay still on her back. She's talked all she wanted to. Hent was up, didn't know whether she was through or not. I wrote a postal to Ed and added to Jen's letter to Grace Thurston and mailed them. Friday 29th. Dr. Hear some later this morning. Jen is permitted a little light food, sis. Paramore got her a chicken yesterday at Tithing Storehouse. While at breakfast, I had a visit from WMH. Kimball hadn't seen him for numbers of years. He's very thin in flesh, was down to the funeral of his son ranch. Weather cloudy and cold this morning. I wrote over a sheet to Florence, the wind blowing terribly. Saturday 30th. I've been afflicted with constipation and piles again. Brushed the carpet in my room and did a little darning of stockings. Snowing when we got up, and all day cold weather comes on us suddenly. Sol was here a while today. He fixed my clock so it has run all right. It didn't stand level was one cause of its not going. Jen is doing splendid. She wrote a short letter to Ed, and I mailed 4 no's of the D. News to him. Son. October 1st. Weather cold, sun trying to shine through the clouds. I built a fire in my grate and sat by it. Jen felt a suffocating sensation during last night. Doctor thinks it's caused by gas accumulating. Ordered her to take castor oil. Nobody else has been here but George Bourne. He said he'd come tomorrow and put up our stove and dining room. Dr. Here twice as usual. Jen bought the Herald and Trib and got me to do them up to mail to Ed. Mon 2nd. I felt unusually well. Cut 2 pairs of red flannel garments for Florence and nearly made 1 pair. I've washed out several of my handkerchiefs. George came and put our stove and dining room this eve. Jen about as usual. Tuesday 3D. Worked till about 4 when my strength failed and I had to lay down. Forgot Hent came up yesterday, said Lee didn't want to come home yet. Lily's being there made him more contented. Doctor comes twice a day. Jokes Jen about laying abed when she feels so well. Wednesday 4th. Stormed last night, and this morning it's windy and cold. Orson came to see us. He's in such pinch circumstances from taxes due, and not able to get at the cash, though owing to him. Don't know, but he'll lose his home. Everybody's in the same boat. My working so smarts brought on gravel again. Took tea made of watermelon seed. Felt better near night, bro. Patrick came with our bill, $20.75. Dr. Doggy being here, they had a talk while doctor waited for car. He explaining the dealings of some of the DRS with him, refusing him a license, etc. Patrick had never before met him, but had read the accounts given of him by the papers. Thursday 5th. Weather warm in the sun. I had 3 or 4 spells of stagnation before rising and continued to all day. My blood is so low. I've hard work to keep my hands warm. I mentioned it to the DR, who told me to get some iron and wine, just what I'd thought to do. He is not to call again till Sunday when he'll take out the stitches. Friday 6th. Conference begins. I feel the effects of those spells, though they've subsided. Tried to work, but obliged to stop and lay down. Hent came with little Horace near night. And also LOL, she said her mother was anxious about us not hearing anything from us for a week and more. Jen had been nearly desperate. Being so lonesome, both of us were wishing Hent or somebody would come. Mrs. Weber's daughter Mamie across the road died this morning. Saturday 7th. Lovely morning, but clouded up again. Cleaned my sitting room and increased the gravel. I did up some papers to send to Ed and mended some clothes for Jen and Florence after I'd rested a while. Bro. Hubbard, from Willard, came to see me. He thought they'd never had a conference equal to this. Mamie Weber was buried today. Son. 8th. Beautiful day. Doctor called, but wanted Jen to lay till tomorrow. Lily came up and got ready for afternoon meeting and returned meeting George. Hent and children. Lee came home to stay. Mon 9th. A warm day. Dr. D came and took out the stitches in G's womb. She turned on her side the first time she's had this privilege for 13 days. I finished letter to Flawed and went to meeting of the National Relief Society was rather late as they had opened and one of the ladies was speaking there was a very good House Apostle Franklin D. Richards addressed us spoke first upon the R. Society's Saving Grain President Woodruff having dwelt upon this theme at conference for the people to prepare themselves for the famine that's upon us. There were many other good things said by him, and all the sisters who spoke. I met numbers who warmly greeted me. Sister Zena and Sarah Kimball didn't know I was on the stand till the close. I stood the task of sitting on a hard seat better than I expected, but felt badly before I got home. Tuesday 10th. Had a storm in the night, and it's cold weather again. I feel rather the worse for yesterday's out. Jen's had the news that Ed will come home soon, the mine being shut down at last. Jen dressed for the first time. Wednesday 11th. Pleasant Lil here early. I fixed her winter dress, or began it. She returned at eve. Thursday 12th. Doctor called this morning finding Jen lots better. She's sat up these 2 days. He charged her to be very careful about exposing herself to the cold until she is wholly restored. Hent called, said G. was sick but gone to work. Friday 13th. Weather lovely. Worked a little at L's Basque. Jen improving every day. Orson and Zine called as they were riding out. Only Zine came and she thought Jen looked awfully. She'd not seen her for some time. George has not been to the store today, we've heard, and fear he's pretty sick. Saturday 14th. Was poorly. Swept my 2 east rooms and was worse for it near night. Commenced a letter to Flawed. Jen feels pretty smart. Sun. 15th. A lonesome day. Jen went to bed, has caught cold. George came up at eve. He'd not been away from the store, but half a day he said, glad to learn that he was so much better. Mon 16th. A storm has threatened us, but it blew over and the day's warm and sunny. Wrote more to Flawed and so did Jen, but failed to mail it for 1 of a 5. Sent stamp drive. Doggy attended Jen this morn. She's to go to his off once when she expects to be through his treatment. Tuesday 17th. Sister P. did a small washing. I've patched 2 pairs of Lee's pants, cut out a flannel waist for myself and put it together. Orson's race was hunting their cow and called in. Wednesday 18th. Ed arrived home on the 10 o'clock train. We'd been looking for him nearly a week and relieved when he came. I worked some on machine and some by hand and nearly finished my waist. Thursday 19th. Ed went for Lily this morn and she came. Mrs. Paramore left afternoon. I gave her 2 gingham aprons made for Lily's little Joseph and kept one for myself. Received a letter from Flawed. Jen went to the DR today. Ed got me wine iron and beef. Mary W. and Phoebe Kimball came to see me. Hent and children were up near night. Friday 20th. Added to my letter written to Flawed near a week ago and mailed it. Did a little sewing. Jen's attended to the cooking. I got Ethel Horn to clean the parlor and porch. Ed got a box of pile salve for Jen and me. I've been much worse of late from constipation. That and gravel are my worst afflictions. Saturday 21st. Weather beautiful, mild and spring-like. I cleaned up my sitting room and bathroom. Jen went to the DR afternoon. She's gaining every day. Work goes hard with Lily. Her spirits at the lowest notch, but she's been more cheerful in the afternoon when her body's rested. Sun. 22. My bath made me late for breakfast. I've been able to eat breakfast with the family for some time past. George was here this forenoon. Helen came to dinner, and her mother towards night. Lily went to tabernacle. After dark it began raining and Bro. Stevens, once a conductor on this line and a relative of his, a young lady with a baby, sought shelter under my porch. Were waiting for the car. We invited them into the house. Mon 23. Sent a check by Ed and drew the $4.50 remaining in the bank. I worked a little on Lil's dress. Tuesday 25th. Awake till 1 o'clock. Began having deathly spells after going to bed and had them all day. They were light till afternoon when they prostrated me, so I had to lay down. Soul's wife was in to see us a while in the forenoon, and he called afternoon. Told me that Bro D. F. Cummins was gathering up our genealogy. In his researches had found himself connected to the Kimballs, which had increased his interest in it. Weather cloudy and windy. Wednesday 25th. Rained last night. I had those deathly spells last night and 2 or 3 today. Felt badly this morning, but revived, so I've sewed on Lil's dress this afternoon. Jen and Lil washed some clothes and did the housework. Sister Robbins visited us a while. We received a letter from Flawed, a very interesting one dated October 14. One interesting item was that Hen had received a testimony of the truth of this work in answer to his fasting and prayer, and says, "This has been the means of making us very happy, and every day I feel more to praise God for His goodness. He has blessed us in so many ways." Thursday 26th. Felt bright this morning, but tired myself working. 2 deathly spells came on before dinner, and I'd no desire to eat. Went to bed a while, got up refreshed, and went to work again. Orson called here this forenoon. Jen went to DR's, and to see our folks. M. Piper was just back from Chicago. She also called at Mary Kimball's, who was delighted to see her. Ed took our front wire doors down today. Friday 27th. Another lovely day. Felt better, did a little sewing, had ducks from Tithing Storehouse. For dinner my appetite's not very good, had but one of those deathly spells today. Saturday 28th. So warm I sat on the east porch with my sewing, finished Lil's dress, and she put it on to go to hence where she'll stop all night. Jen went to the DR's after cleaning her bedroom, my sitting room and windows, etc. I've worried over her doing more than she's able to when there's been no necessity for it. I've been filled with anxiety to have her restored to sound health. One death-like spell came on me in the middle of the day. They are lighter. Sun. 29th. Sister Paramore was here this forenoon, and Hent came with children, except Helen, and stayed till night, and George came after then. Bro Charlie called. And Lou Barton came with her baby and spent part of the evening. I began a letter to Flawed in the forenoon, felt sad and sick at heart, and was glad to have company come. Had a deathly spell in the middle of the day. Lily went to Tabernacle from hence, and from there to Orson's, and went to evening meeting. Mon 30th. Awoke before daybreak and slept no more. Finished my sheet to Flawed. Jen mailed it with hers on her way to the DR's. Ed got half a ton of lump coal. Tuesday 31st. I spent mostly repairing my everyday dress, gave up and laid down near night, tired out. Jen went to the DR's. He's moving to the old synagogue, which he rents for a hospital. Wednesday, November 1st. We all went to Helen's. The day foggy and cold. Helen had been real sick since Sunday. I felt sick from lack of sleep the past few nights. Thursday 2nd. Went to fast meeting, arose and bore my testimony, paid $2 tithing, and one in donation to the poor. From there went to Orson's, took lunch, and returned home after 3 o'clock. Met Miss Babcock there at lunch. A letter came from Flawed this forenoon. Friday 3D. Had a slight chill from taking cold at Orson's, I think, and cough worse. Did some more fixing of Lil's green dress. Girls did some washing. I was very tired and in pain, but wouldn't give up and lay down. Saturday 4th. Had to go back to bed. Another chill came on. I had pleurisy in right shoulder. On waking this morning, applied oil and turpentine, also to my lungs. Cough terrible, giving me no rest. Hence sent for Lily by Helen to come and stop with her children at Eve-Ed. Jen and Lee went to see the parade of citizens on Main Street. Sun. 5th. Still sick, had another chill, went to bed in parlor. Jen made me a fire, my cough very bad. Mary Jane and her nephew Ray Kimball called to see us. George Bourne came at sundown, finding me worse. Monday 6th. Was better this morning, but a chill came on afternoon by drinking cold water. Being so thirsty, cough was relieved by turpentine on an oiled flannel, and also the pleurisy. I wrote half a sheet to Flotty, and Jen wrote her. Soul's wife was here a while, said she was so pleased to see me at meeting. Thursday I dosed myself with quinine and peachwicey. Tuesday 7th. Kept my bed and escaped a chill, felt little like rising, no appetite. Poorly indeed. Hent was up to see me near night. Horace had been real sick, was why Lil hadn't returned. Wednesday 8th. Spent in bed. Took cold in the night by wind blowing through the transom panes over right eye and my temple. Took more quinine and physic. Soul was here to see me, told some dreams he'd lately had, and read me a letter written a friend of his, and expressed his wishes pertaining to his family if he should hap to die, but told me not to breathe it to anyone as he wouldn't want Carline to hear of it. Thursday 9th. Head bad, took more quinine, was relieved towards night. Lily came in the morning, and Hent and children afternoon. George came up to dinner. I laid awake much of the night, coughed considerable. Friday 10th. Girls washed some, I dressed, and have sat up most of the day, quite improved since this morning. Polly called on us this evening, looks pale and thin. Saturday 11th. Feels stronger and able to read some. Ed took up 3 little plum trees that Soul had put in my front lawn before I moved here, and set them out on the west side, and is to move some of the rose bushes back to make room for better ones that will be here within a week. Jen went to the DRS after cleaning mine and her rooms and other work. She's pretty strong. Sun. 12th. Pleasant. I went out to breakfast. Soul called and gave Jen an article to read from Bro Cummings concerning the Kimball genealogy. Was quite interesting, with a correspondence between Cummings and a man who has been working out the Kimball genealogy for years, and his book's nearly ready for publication. Helen Violet's wild story of our ancestry coming from Scotland to Canada, etc., falls to the ground. After dark, George came up to see how we were. The girls were at meeting. Lily had attended tabernacle meeting. Orson was one of the speakers. Jen and I commenced letters to Florence today. Mon 13th. We're enjoying nice weather. Received a good letter from Flawed. They are having similar weather in London, a thing unknown there for a great many years. She's not been very well of late. John W. Young was moving, she wrote. Ed got me cough drops and George gave him the money to go to drugstore to get my sleeping medicine. I asked him last evening to lend it to me. Tuesday 14th. Suffering from deathly spells while laying down. Sister Patrick called and left a ticket for me to go to the entertainment at the theater tomorrow. Lily went to Helen's this afternoon. Wednesday 15th. I felt very poorly though, dressed myself in the morning to go out, but before the time for the theater to open I was so much worse, had to go to bed. Those deathly spells are only occasional, had them more frequent last night. Thursday 16th. Felt no better, poor appetite, obliged to lay down. A snowstorm has blown up. 2 rose bushes and a creeping rose was set out yesterday by my east porch and path. The price of them and setting them out was $2.55. Sister Paramore came for her pay, but Ed's check has not arrived from St. Louis. And we're in one as well, but not suffering from it. Friday 17th. Everything robed in white and children out enjoying themselves. I'm better than yesterday and trying hard to rise above gloom caused by disease and a lonely life. I paid the binding of 3 volumes of Exponent with my books on plural marriage yesterday, and Ed brought it home and found they'd charged me 50 cents too much. Ed received his check from New York and paid some of our debts and my taxes, which takes the whole. Sat 18th. Jen's cleaned all the rooms, did parlor yesterday, and done the housework alone. I felt more poorly this morning. An invitation came from E.B. Wells to attend a surprise on Sister M.I. Horn on Monday next at the 14 Ward Assembly Rooms. It's her 75th birthday. Each lady gives 25 CTS and a cake. I haven't 10 CTS to get a little turpentine which I'm in need of and a bottle of consecrated oil, etc. Saying nothing of other wants. Jen went to the DRS after dinner, found he'd been very sick with colds, etc. Helen came to see us and spent a while. Her Genevieve has been real sick with a cold. Ed got all the medicines I wanted, which there was poor prospects of this morning. Sun. 19th. Late to rise. Orson called while I was taking breakfast in my room, took my bath afterwards. Soul came in and spent a while. I've had to lay down twice, not as strong as I was yesterday. I wrote part of a letter to Florence. George and Brady came up in the evening. Brad spoke 2 of his school pieces for us. This has been a pleasant sunshiny day. Jen, Ed and children visited the boulevard above us. After dinner last night was a very cold one. Mon 20th. Feeling better, finished my letter to Flottie, received one from her and acknowledged it. Jen also wrote her letters. The 2 last especially are so interesting. Jen will send them for Orson and Bud to read. She had passed her examination at the Great Guildhall School of Music, has one of the best masters in London, the wonderful Italian professor Signor Garcia. She'd taken her first lesson from him the previous day. She sang Ninon Foster's greatest success. He was delighted as she sang it in French, and though not perfect in the pronunciation, he said it was very good indeed. He said, "Madame has a very beautiful voice, so full of expression." In his broken English way, she had to sing the same song Ninon before 4 judges, and when she'd finished they rose and shook her hand heartily and complimented her in turn. One said, "You ought to have the very best master," and it was he who proposed Garcia. "How hard I prayed over the affair," she says. "I cannot tell you, and they were answered, for I surprised myself, and my heart has been filled with gratitude to God ever since." Yes, full to overflowing. Tuesday 21st. Not so well today. It's cold and foggy. Ed made $4 on script. The wind and snow blowing from the north. Lily came up this morning and is washing with Jen, not able to hire it done any longer. This is my dear Charlie's birthday. He died 7 years ago last August. Polly and husband came and spent last evening. I had a chill from taking cold at dinner today. Wednesday 22nd. Last night was awful cold. Sun has shown most of the day. I've had to lay down most of the day. Took cold at dinner yesterday. Settled through right breast. Applied turpentine. Had another chill towards night. Sten Clausen called at Eve to see about my teeth to know when he should come and take the impression. Thursday 23D was set to visit Helen, but I being sick in bed no one but Lily went. She's got a cold. Helen was awfully disappointed at our not coming and came up towards night. I'd taken more cold in my head and shoulders. Friday 24th and 25th. Spent in bed, doctored with quinine and castor oil. Sun. 26th. Dismal weather. Lily came home yesterday sick with quinsy. I slept after my fire was built well onto 12 o'clock today after I'd eaten and dressed, but I'm very poorly yet. Lily slept pretty good. Jen made a bed for her on the cot in dining room. Helen came this evening. She said they wanted us down there Thanksgiving Day, but George, knowing that I nor Lil would be able to go, proposed for them to bring their turkey up and have dinner here. We are in for it. I forgot to mention Mary Whitney's being here yesterday with Pearl Vinson. Mon 27th. Took a bath and feeling exhausted and my head aching went back to bed. Sol's wife and her mother called to see me and visited a while after noon. I got up and felt better for it. My headache left me. I wrote half a sheet to Florence. Lily's been with me this afternoon. This is her 36th birthday. It rained last night. Clear sun this morning, but threatening again afternoon. Tuesday 28th. Rain and hail. Lily's on my bed. Her throat broke this evening. She could both eat and drink and we are thankful. Jen and I received letters from Flawed. She was sick from a cold. This prevented her from taking her lesson in music. Bud put a notice in the Saturday's news of her examination and her having Garcia for her master, etc. Wednesday 29th. Lily and I had breakfast in bed. I had to laugh at our appearance as we sat side by side. I afterwards arose to dress me and was in the act of putting on my corset waist when I felt that I must go to bed, which I did just as soon as I could put on my nightgown, and laid there till evening when I sat up for my bed to be shook up and aired. My head ached most of the day. Lily has sat up all day. Helen Violet Kimball came to see us. She's so fleshy I didn't know her. Thursday 30th. Thanksgiving Day. Orson came to see me. Was sitting in bed, just finished breakfast as he came. Helen and her children came early. And George to dinner. They sent the turkey yesterday. I went out to dinner about 4 o'clock. It was served, and we had a sunny day above as well as indoor. Though I'm poorly in body, I'm blessed in many ways for which I am grateful. Friday, December 1st. Rained last night, and today Union Thanksgiving services was held last evening at the Assembly Hall. Orson was the first speaker. After the chairman, Governor West's introductory remarks. The death of dear Sister Savage and numbers of others are noticed in the evening news. They're gone where suffering cannot reach them more. As things appear, one might naturally think that my time was speeding to its end when it will receive a similar notice. I hope no praises will be sounded over my head that I have not richly earned. Saturday 2nd. I was awake last eve by heavy rain and hail. I dreamed of riding in a small sailboat, beautifully draped and cushioned for my use, and a man to row it over the deep at my pleasure, the water clear and as broad as the ocean. We had sailed a little distance and the oars were resting when I stood up, but a sudden row of the boatmen threw me backward and my head and shoulders into the water. I made a struggle to save myself and make my condition known, but I recovered myself without any visibly assistance. My dress, some kind of thin silk, was wet, and some of my underwear, which I feared would give me a cold. When I awoke, I've written part of a letter to Flawed and not laid down till dark to rest. Sun. 3D. Sunny and cheering to one's spirits. I felt no worse for my writing yesterday, but wrote a little today and had to lay down for it. Was called to a dinner of roast chickens, etc. Nobody has been here today. Mon 4th. Gloomy overhead. Our letters to Flawed finished and mailed. I mended Lil's basque. Was obliged to lay down. Head ached. Afterwards wrote checks with Jen's help to pay $12 to Dr. Dog, $14 to Dinwoody, $10 to Robert Patrick, and $10 for myself. Out of it, I'm to pay $6 borrowed money to G. Born. This is Lee's 6th birthday. Helen and Brady came up and brought a scent bottle for him and a nickel from Mary Decker. Ed got some popcorn rolls, and Jen made some coconut candy for them. I had 6 spells of stagnation of my blood. Beginning near night, I'd had a pressure through my breast and shortness of breath in the morning every time I exerted myself to do anything on my feet. And it was with difficulty that I ate my dinner on account of a feeling of fullness across my breast when trying to swallow. This was quite unusual. I felt no more of it after dinner. Tuesday 5th. Those death-like spells lasted all night and today, and though of a lighter form, they are very prostrating. I sent by Ed to get medicine for them and some for my head, also sent by him the checks on the state bank to my creditors. R.S. Teachers were here this morning. The meeting is held in the Lionhouse. Wednesday 6th. Late to sleep and late to rise this morning. Felt so poorly. Received a short letter from Florence. She had had so many callers, and Mrs. Everard was there then, whom she got excused from long enough to write a few lines. John W. Young, she says, is in great trouble, having swindled some of the saints out of large sums of money. Mrs. Everard, one of them, he got $6,000 from her and will not, or cannot pay. The officers have been in his house for days. I don't know how it will turn out. It is having a dreadful effect on many of the saints and investigators, and I fear it will be the means of their downfall. Flawed is glad that she quit going there when she did. Fears the brethren will never be able to undo all he has done. Mrs. Everard was simply raving over her loss. She had stood back from joining the church because she couldn't bring herself to pay $6,000 tithing, and had only just brought her mind to obey the ordinance of baptism. It looks to me as if this had happened to her as a retribution, that the Lord suffered her to be taken in by J.W. to swindle her out of that amount. Jen has gone to the DRs. He sent word by Ed that he wanted her to come to be treated as she was not well yet. Sister Robbins came and sat a while with me, and Mabel held called in. Jen went over to Sister Woodmansey's yesterday, on business, and found her on her bed, where she's been 6 weeks with gastric fever, and we'd not heard of it before. Sten Clausen came near dark and fitted my undergum for new teeth. Ed expects to get work near Deep Creek, putting up machinery at a mine there. Thursday 7th. Fast day. Weather changed from sunny to fog. Lily attended meeting. I felt very poorly this morning. Had 3 or 4 deathly spells yesterday, sent by Ed for alcohol and kidney medicine. I dreamed of riding down Main Street with Jen and someone else. We met Grandma Whitney. As we drew near Godby and Pitts, she'd a little shawl over her head and was crossing the street towards the bank. She looked bright and youthful. We stopped and asked her to ride with us, and she got in with Jen's help and sat on her lap. When we turned and rode up the street, I had a short call from Orson at Eve. Read Flood's letter to him. He felt as I do about J.W. Young being left to swindle the saints over there and make havoc of their faith, etc., instead of exposing him as he's long deserved. I wrote part of a letter to Flawed today. And Helen came up to bring one she'd written her, and a necktie Christmas gift to send her in the letter. Friday 8th, rainy and dismal. I finished my letter to mail, sent Flaweds to Seoul to read. Suffering sick, headache to pay for writing and reading yesterday. Lee was sick last night. Jen's cleaning house did sitting and bathroom today. I dreamed of our having 2 or 3 large fresh hams. Saturday 9th. Gloomy still. Florence sick last night with sore throat. Men came from James and put pipes on my chimneys to stop them smoking, but they failed to do it. My head has ached all day and makes me feel sick. Jeannie Kimball called on us this afternoon. Sun. 10th. Sun shone this morn, and at intervals, but clouded over. Jen and Ed went to Dolph's, left the children with Lily. Florence was sick last night and has quite a sore throat and fever today. Bro. Charlie called on me. I've laid down most of the afternoon, had nervous sick headache. Mon 11th. Beautiful morning. Changed to occasional fog. Ed took out my stovepipe and cleaned it of soot and burned a coal-oiled rag in the chimney. I gave him $5 order on TO to exchange for cash to get a ton of coal, and a check on State Bank for $10. Soul was here a while, read some interesting things that he'd learned from different quarters, invited me to visit at his house one day this week, where he's invited fathers' wives. Ed just returned bringing the news of Sister Belinda Musser's sudden death just after her return from Luz last evening caused cerebral apoplexy. How much better it would seem had it been her poor old mother. Lily went to Hence after dinner, and H. came up here and spent a few minutes. Little Florence is broken out in a rash and her tongue is covered. Tuesday 12th. Foggy but mild weather. Florence has recovered. She's not acted sick, though her face has shown it. Jen has given her sage tea, etc. I spoke yesterday of red salmon, thought I'd relish it, and was surprised by having some for breakfast. Ed remembered me to it. I relished it more than anything I've eaten lately. I've been free from headache today for the first time for a week, having refrained from reading, etc. Wednesday 13th. Ed and Jen did washing in 2 hours with machine. I enjoyed a visit at Souls with Christine Kimball and her golden Amanda, Ruth, Mary Ellen, and Sarah Reese conversing upon religious and political topics, etc. The time was agreeably spent. Caroline had a very nice dinner, and a variety stand. Clausen was here early this morning with my new teeth. I wore them all day, though they made my gum sore. He called at Eve and said he'd call again. Jen attended Sister Belinda's funeral. Hent called for Lil, who came home this morn to take her to the theater. Thursday 14th. Gloomy, snowed a trifle. Utah likely to become a state at last, so the news tells us. Friday 15th. Snowing and ground covered this morn. Cleared up and sun shone afternoon. I was late to sleep last night and slept this morn. Wrote to Flawed. Lily came home and took charge of children for Jen to go and see Hent. Lee has sore throat and a fever like Florence's had. We received a letter from Flawed. She'd a bad headache from being up with the sick. Sister Frances was sick and some of her family had been, and all were worn out, besides having a brother Kelly in their house sick with rheumatism, and her father had been taken suddenly ill and died night before last, she says, and her mother is also quite low, and she herself is in bed sick, and that she was happy to say she had been the instrument in the hands of God of bringing those 2 sisters together. Mrs. Everard, the one who'd believed but had not yet joined the church, is there night and day waiting on them, but when Flawed wrote last they were at swords' points in consequence of jealousy, and Flawed was trying to make peace, but seemingly in vain. Saturday 16th. Late to sleep and late to rise as usual. Feel the best today that I've done for some time. Spent part of my time in dining room. Lee is covered with a fine rash just like Florence's. I wrote and read a little afternoon. Jen went to Mary W.'s and tithing store, bought 12 yards of apron cloth. She cleaned the parlor and other rooms before going. Sun. 17th. Pleasant. Helen and children spent afternoon and took dinner with us. I felt real poorly, touch of sick headache from using my eyes too much the last 2 days. George called for Hent and children at Eve. My family living here spent the evening in my room. Jen played organ and sung old songs, Lil and Ed joining in, and Lee and Florence sung a number of little songs, very sweetly, passing evening pleasantly. Mon 18th. Late to sleep and laid awake numbers of times, which has not improved my feelings today. My sleeping medicine don't put me to sleep as readily as it used to and leave me feeling bright in the morning, but I lay awake half the night before it takes effect. I went to bed this afternoon and slept off the headache. We wrote a little more to Flawed before Ed took it to mail. Tuesday 19th. Felt sick from too little sleep till afternoon. Jen and Ed went last eve to Savage's and got each of the children a doll, and Lee an ark filled with all manner of creatures. They got them with tea. Orders. I planed of my plate of teeth where they hurt my gum with sandpaper and put them on for the first time since I wore them a week ago, my gum having been so sore. The girls washed and Lily went to Helen's afternoon. I commenced doll dressing afternoon and had to lay down towards night. Spent part of this evening in the midst of my household. Wednesday 20th. Late to sleep and late to rise. Felt the effects of sleeping medicine all day and spent most of the afternoon on the bed, though didn't sleep. Jen went to DR's, but was too late to see him. Soul's wife was in to see me this morning. Thursday 21st. Another sick day, had indigestion added to the rest. Tried to sew on doll's dress, but had to go to bed. Soul's wife in to see me this morning. The news of yesterday contained the notice of W.M.B. Smith's death at his home, Osterdock, Iowa, gone to judgment. Friday 22nd. Had a sick night and day. Felt quite different at Eve, having laid down all day. Slept but little last night. Distress in my stomachic indigestion and sorely affected by my sleeping drug. G. Bourne came at Eve to bring me more of the drug. Clerk told him he'd mixed it all exactly as he'd done for S. When told that it affected me so differently, but I can't believe it. Saturday 23d. Had the loveliest night's sleep I've known for a long time, owing to the sleeping medicine which I mixed, and took some of the same sensations, so soothing, putting me to sleep as it's always done till lately, for which I thank the Lord with all my heart. I took the other stuff in the afternoon of yesterday and am still under its influence. George brought me a pint of wine at Eve. Children early to bed, feeling happy over Christmas. Mail brought 2 parcels of London papers with fine gauze thing for my neck, and a lovely handkerchief both richly embroidered, and a Christmas card and pair of kid gloves for Lily. Sun 24th late to rise feeling very poorly indeed. Rachel Simmons here near night, did me good to see her once more and interchange feelings, etc. Christmas 1893. Had the sickest headache all day. Orson and Zine here a few minutes, and Helen in the afternoon. She brought me 2 pairs of warm stockings and a souvenir. Curfew must not ring tonight. And presents to Lily and Jen from her and George. Orson told me he'd intended to present me with the 2nd volume of History of Utah, but they were not bound yet. I wrote to Flawed. Jen also wrote a sheet, received a letter from her to us all, and Jen a parcel containing a pair of gloves, and cards came for the children. We've sent no gifts, but love and good wishes for the best of reasons. Forgot to mention the salt trout and 2 packages of barley coffee sent me in the morning by Sister Rachel Simmons. Her son is agent for the coffee. I like it mixed with other coffee better that I do either alone, and shall buy it after this. Lee and Florence were made very happy. She has a carriage to draw her doll. They've had candy, raisins, nuts and cakes, etc., and Jen had roasted chickens, etc., for dinner, but I couldn't bear even the smell of them. Took some cold chicken and bread and raw onion for lunch near night with cold water. Relished it too. My head was better. Tuesday 26th. The first day I've taken breakfast without feeling sick. Am free from headache, thank the Lord. Had a caller, Sister Peyton, enjoyed chatting with her. The washing done with Ed's help. I mended a white flannel peacoat of Lil's. Ed went for my elixir pips and cost 50 CTS. Wednesday 27th. Feeling better, did a little sewing. Mary Whitney came and brought me a white handkerchief from L. Decker and one from herself, and a silk one for the neck from Helen. Violet Kimball, and a pretty ornament for parlor sent by Clark. Christmas gifts. Mary told how many lovely presents she'd received. Lily went to hence after dinner. Tuesday night I dreamed of Horace and Charlie. The latter a young boy and Flawed was small. Also there was a big gathering near my house and table spread for a feast. I told Charlie to go to the house for something and he didn't go till I took him and made him. He said while I was pulling him along that he'd go if I'd do something. I didn't hear. But I felt so grieved I began to sob and awoke sobbing till I felt sick from it. I must have fallen asleep. At any rate, I dreamed of David McKinsey coming to the same house for me to join a few friends who were a little ways from the main crowd, but I declined because I had so much to do. He'd inquired for Horace, and I told him he'd gone out for a walk in his shirt sleeves as it was very warm. I thought there'd been a heavy rain and wondered where he was. Just then in he came, had borrowed a black broadcloth coat, and looked as he did in his best days handsome, and I was still youthful, only a dream. There was much more that went from me as they generally do nowadays. Thursday 28th, not feeling so well, had to lay down afternoon, think I've taken cold. Friday 29th, slept till 9, the sun was then shining and I thought it my duty to go somewhere, was not aware that it had been snowing while I was taking my morning nap. But before I was out of bed, Helen and Brady came to inform us that their mother and all hands were coming up to spend the day. Delightful news this. And we've had a happy day. The sun was soon hidden, and I should not have dared to go out. Some snow has fallen today, and it's dreadful cold. Lily remains with us. Oh, I forgot we received a letter from Flawed, and this is Jen and Ed's wedding day. And little Helen presented me with a tidy pieced-up hit ormus, and lace around it, all her own handwork, begun when she was much younger than now. Saturday 30th, Jen gave the parlor a thorough cleaning and blacked my stove, besides cleaning her own and sitting room, etc. Lily here helping the day pleasant. I've taken a little cold weather, getting cold near night. Sun, 31st. Last day of 1893, pleasant outdoors, but rather a sick day for me. Cold in my head and throat, and deathly spells began last eve, keeping up most of the day, making me feel pretty sick. I dreamed of my father last night. He was upstairs, and a peddler who'd been there before was accusing me of keeping 1 or 2 of his articles that I'd not paid him for. He became very impudent when I called father, and when he came the peddler changed his tune and was lavish with his soft soap and blarney to him. I took quinine and felt relieved of headache near night. Polly Stevens came up to stop all night, had singing at Eve by her and Jen and the children. Polly sang Josephine and I Can Never Give My Hand Where My Heart Can Never Be, which were sung with much feeling. My brother Charlie called and spent a few minutes lectured me, as usual, for my lack of faith to get above my sickness as do those of Christian Science, which he advocates. He'd attended last Sunday's meeting at Tabernacle and enjoyed Bro Nicholson address and George Piper's singing, which was beautiful and the words also. Said he was a better churchgoer than we were.